We're alive. G'day, I'm Danny de Hek. I normally start off my podcast YouTube streams by saying I'm Danny de Hek, aka the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger, but it's not fitting for this video. I don't know if you know, but I was actually brought up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I don't know, I'm scarred for life. People think that I'm rejected from an organization that doesn't care about anyone. Well, I've had a fun-filled life. I've done lots of things I'd never most people may not even dream about doing. Today, it is 15 minutes past 10, Sunday evening here in New Zealand, and I've got a special guest who is living a similar life than myself, and we're going to just share some of the trials and tribulations and rejoice in some of the great things that's happening in our life. So I'm going to just bring her on stage. Her name is Lara Kaput, and whereabouts are you from at the moment?
I live in Australia.
Aussie. Good. Our friends over the ditch, as they say. I don't know if you know that, but New Zealand, most Americans don't know there's a country called New Zealand, but we're underneath where the very first see the sunlight in the world, and Australia next. What's that noise? You've got phone calls coming in already. She's alive.
I'm sorry, Danny. Yes, I didn't expect that, and I can't switch it off because I've got my systems on. But thank you for the welcome.
That's all right. I've got these cards here. Remember I said I had a surprise for you? Right. So I've got 120 cards, and when I'm doing podcasts, I find it a really good idea to warm the person up so they feel a bit more at ease. And I just literally pick a random card and ask you a question. Even I don't know what's going to be on the question. Okay. Where in the world would you travel to next?
New Zealand.
Yay! And why? Why are you coming to New Zealand? Isn't that fitting?
That's a good question. I'm going to meet you at the Decult conference.
I know.
That is on the 19th and 20th of October. And we will be attending to talk about cults and how we can decult the world.
And there's meant to be there's about 200 tickets, and it's going to be streamed on the internet. You can purchase tickets, and I will make sure that it's in the description of this video. Now, as I said, we are live on the internet. So if you've got any questions that you would like to ask to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, to put it in the chat box. I'll bring them up and we'll have a go at answering them. So we want to make this sort of a wee bit more interactive. I've got 5 questions to ask you tonight. So I'm going to shuffle my cards again and pick one of these ones and see what the question is for the second one. Oh, here you go. This has been an interesting one because we've had a bit of a pre-chat before we got going. Last night, in fact, and we have a lot of similarities, which is ridiculous. But this one is one that I think I could answer quite well. What is the longest you have ever gone without sleep, and why?
That is a really good question. It was probably when I was traveling internationally. I think it's something like 36 hours, something like that. And there was a long changeover, transition through airports, a couple of changes. I'm not sure if it was Madagascar or South America.
Ooh,
so that was why for travel. And I know you travel a lot, and we've been to the same number of countries, I think 35 countries.
You just took the words right out of my mouth, but it's pretty cool. I know I've been to 35 countries, and Lara goes, so have I. And I go, not the same ones. We've fully missed each other at many airports. I love traveling. I always say to people, I'll be on a plane anywhere, anytime, for any reason. Yeah, I haven't been on a plane outside of New Zealand for before COVID actually. So I'm due for a change. All right, we've got 3 more questions to go before we start talking on what we want to talk about. Oh, now this doesn't apply to me. You'll love this though. I've got to tell you my story before I ask the question, and the question is quite funny in a way. I've never actually read a book in my life except the Bible, and not in its entirety from A to Z. All right, but I can quote scriptures out of context quite well. But this question here is saying, who is your favorite author? Please don't say Jesus.
Okay. I'm a voracious reader, and I was part of what was called the MS Readathon when I was a child. The MS Readathon was a charitable thing that you did, which I really enjoyed, for multiple sclerosis. It was raising money for multiple sclerosis. Wow. And I think one time I got funding for reading over 50 books That's how much I like books. You prefer maths and I prefer English.
Yep.
So my favourite author, I like non-fiction, and I can't remember his surname, but his name is Tim. He's a well-known biologist. I can Google it for you if you like.
Yep.
And what I like about him is he talks about animals that are unusual. So one of the books that I recently read was about tree kangaroos in Papua New Guinea. I'll look up his surname.
Oh, look, I'm never going to read it, but
but for your audience, they might be interested in.
You gave me a PDF to read about what you're doing at the moment. I have got it on the screen,
Yes.
and we'll bring it up. But I was trying to get ChatGPT to summarize it, so I didn't have to read it.
Okay, I just found his name, and it's Tim Flannery, biologist.
Oh, yeah, I know. I might know somebody called Flannery, but that's cool. Well, everyone's going to look that up, but don't go there now. Stay with us. We've got some more exciting stuff for you. I did shuffle the card, but I had a sneaky look at the question once again, and I have asked this question to about 200 people in my time. I used to have a business networking company where people used to come and network together, and when a speaker couldn't make it, I come up with my questions. And this question is quite a funny one. I remember it well. If you could share a meal with any individual, living or dead, not a dead person, but somebody who's passed away, who would that be? Who would you like to have a meal with? You can't say Jesus.
The best food I've ever had was in South America, in Brazil.
Yeah.
So for the taste of the food, it would have to be someone in Brazil, and I guess David Attenborough is a favourite.
Wow,
so if I could have a meal in Brazil with David Attenborough, that would be the pinnacle of cuisine.
He's 90 something, isn't he now?
Yeah, I think he might even be older than 95. I once went to one of his talks, and I was starstruck. Sorry.
Oh, really? I was going to have a guess at 94, but I didn't want to insult him. But I think you're right. I think 96 could be about right. If anyone in the audience wants to have a go at cracking that one and put it in the chat room, that would be much appreciated. It would be quite interesting. And the last question, and then you'll be all warmed up, ready for a bit of a chat, and we can ask you some questions. Okay. Is there anything you wish would come back into fashion? Bell bottoms?
No. I can think of the things that I don't want to come back into fashion. Like, mullets are back in fashion, and I wish that hadn't happened. Just comfortable clothes. I mean, they're currently in fashion. They haven't gone out. But this new leisure wear, I find really comfortable. When women are wearing these stretchy tops and tights, it's just so comfortable. So I hope it stays in fashion.
Yeah, no, that's not too bad. I did see a young guy coming out of a shop on Saturday, and he looked like he was about 12, and his father let him, because we wouldn't be able to do this when we were brought up as Jehovah's Witnesses, but he shaved his head all the way back here and had a mullet at the age of 12. And I'm thinking, really? And I think, is that cool?
It's the hairstyle I wanted in the 80s, Danny.
What, do you remember the punk rockers with the spiked hair all the way through?
Yeah.
I went to the hairdresser on Saturday, and I said, I show him a picture of myself, and I said, just like that. And it's how short it is. And I've never had a haircut too short. I think I like it, but I can't imagine ever doing anything like a mullet or a spiky hairdo.
Yeah, I had something of a mullet, but I really wanted the shaved sides. Luckily, that just never happened. I also wanted to get an earring and an eyebrow piercing, and luckily that never happened either. No, but I was into trendy stuff in the 80s.
Oh wow, look at you! And did you have frizzy hair?
I still have frizzy hair.
No, you know how they buff it all out, and it's like an afro, but it's all wavy, and you have it up with hairspray.
Oh, I don't even need to do that. I just wake up and it's like that.
Oh, you're lucky.
Yeah, I was born with frizzy hair.
Right. So we had a good chat last night, and was trying not to tell each other too many things, because I don't know you very well. But when we talked last night, I felt like I know you very well. And that's because we've both been brought up in this religion. And I thought a nice way of introducing, a lot of people feel like we may have a chip on our shoulder. We may be resentful, or we hate our lives. And I think that's one thing I got from last night's conversation, that we've done some pretty cool things. You've traveled 35 countries. You've got educated. you become a scientist. I mean, we weren't allowed to get educated, and we weren't allowed to save for our retirement, because everyone that we met in the world was going to be destroyed, and the righteous people, which is us, were going to inherit the earth and live forever. And all the animals were going to live on straw and weren't going to kill each other, because there was going to be none of that sort of carry on. And that's what we got brought up to believe. So when I got discommunicated from the organization when I was 23 years of age, I spent 4 months of my life bawling my eyes out at the back of the Kingdom Hall, hoping that they'd reinstate me. I think they did, because they were worried about my mental health. And then 6 months after that, I think it was, I got kicked out again for doing the same thing. And then I spent the next 2 years of my life trying to get back into this organization until I gave up. Then I had to do something, which you mentioned last night. I'm going to let you answer this question. I've got a few questions. I don't want to bet all questions and answers, but I think I've started over my life 3 times so far. And you said you had to, in this Insight, what's that video you gave me to watch?
Oh, SBS Insight. It's a TV program in Australia, sort of current affairs.
Yep. And you talked about how you had to learn how to form friendships, and you also had to learn how to be a friend and build relationships. And I resonated so much with that. So you've started over, and how did it go?
Yes, like you, I've started over 3 times. So
another thing.
Once because I was Jehovah's Witness. So I was born in, and I left at 19, so just a few years younger than you. And then the second time, I guess, since the Royal Commission in Australia into CSA. And the third time when my partner died. So I'll just talk about the first part. So when I left being a Jehovah's Witness, I knew, because it had been preached to me and I had been indoctrinated to understand that I would lose all my family and friends through shunning, because I was baptized. I was baptized at 16. And I was aware that if I ever left, I would be shunned. So on the day that I left, I knew that everything was about to change. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. So I lost my family, my friends. Not all of my family were Jehovah's Witnesses, and not all of them are now, but all of the ones who were Jehovah's Witnesses essentially shunned me. And that really made me feel isolated, lonely. And I was really, this is a word that only people our age know, Danny, but I was really daggy.
That's an Australian thing.
Yeah, okay. I don't know the Kiwi word equivalent.
Well, we say you're a bit of a dag, and I used to say you're actually the whole sheep's bum.
Right.
I've heard that one before. But you were brought up in a cattle farm.
In a really awkward way. So, I had braces and I had pimples and, fluffy hair, like we said before. And I was just really awkward. I'd lived with my father and had no idea about makeup or clothing or anything. So I left and I looked like a cult kid. We sort of shared photos and, I remember my partner saying about what I was wearing. He said, "Oh, you look at you, little cult kid. There's a certain look you have." And so
you didn't have a veil, did you?
I didn't have a veil, no, but I just didn't look like all the other kids at school. I didn't know the latest trends, which is why I became so obsessed with the 80s, I think. And so what happened was, because I was already awkward, I found it difficult to make friends because, like you said before, we'd grown up thinking, we were the one true religion and we were special. And so there's this internalized, oh, we're special. But then when you reach the outside world, oh, no, I'm awkward. So there was this dichotomy of living, and that made me, isolated and alone. So the way that I dealt with that, to answer your question, was to join clubs. I knew that I had to start joining things, even if I was uncomfortable about it. So, for example, I started cycling, I started long distance walking, I went to dancing lessons.
Done that too. Did you do
Yeah,
what sort of dance? Was it ballroom, rock and roll, Latin
it's the
American?
rock, which is a French type of
Rock.
dance, which is
I've
sort of
learned that
everything
too.
put together.
I've learned that for 2 years. I did the beginners class for 2 years to the point where the instructor got me to help it teach people, but I didn't get any more advanced than the beginners class.
It's fun. Yeah, I didn't get
I did
advanced either, but then I did other things like, sorry, my nose is running. 1 second.
Where's it running to?
I did things like rock climbing, and rock climbing is
yeah.
a really, really social thing where you can go rock climbing indoors or outdoors. And so you'd go camping with other rock climbers. And, I started traveling. And just when you travel by yourself, which I've done before and I recommend, you just randomly meet people. And I had to, the saying, you've got to fake it before you make it.
Mm-hmm.
I faked being friendly until I was comfortable with it. And now I can talk to anyone about anything on the street.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
I don't know if you ever, I'm actually what do I say? I'm an extroverted introvert. Is that right? I'm an introverted extrovert. That means when I'm by myself, I'm quiet, and with people who really know me, I'm not a extrovert. But if you see me on a podcast going after somebody after a scammer, I'm not introverted. But I like my privacy. I travel by myself if I can. I love to be. I remember getting stuck in Egypt and I couldn't get out. I paid like $1,500 US. 4 countries later, within 24 hours, I got to Prague and it was minus 17 degrees. I went from 40 degrees and I turned up there with no warm clothes. And I just remember the freedom of being able to get on a plane. And I literally walked into the airport in, where's that Egypt place called? Cairo. And walked upstairs and said, "Where's that plane going on the runway?" And the guy said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "On that plane, anywhere out of here." And because I got bitten by mosquitoes and I was getting infected, and I actually needed.
Oh no!
So anyway, he says, "Oh, I'll put you. Where do you want to go?" I said, "Oh, Prague." And then he put me on the plane, and I even got business class seats, not on purpose, but because I paid too much. But it was years ago. But I just remember the traveling, the independence, because I think being independent is something that you kind of had to do. Like, I want to ask you something that I've just thought of. When I first got kicked out of the organization, I was in a partnership with another guy as a painter and a decorator. And it would have been awkward for me to continue with my business. So I gave my business to my Jehovah's Witness business partner. And then I had to find somewhere to live. And I finished up. A guy who owned a nightclub that I painted said, "Why don't we go into business together?" And I said, "What would we do?" And we actually started up one of the first internet cafe in Christchurch. And I had this room that was literally 3 meters by 2 meters, and I could fit my bed in there, but nothing else. And that was my life. And he paid the rent if I worked for him. But I didn't know anyone. And how did you start? Like, where were you living? Like, what happened?
Yeah, so in some ways I was a little bit lucky, and the reason why I was a little bit lucky is because my dad wasn't born in. So my dad came in when he was about 20 or younger than 20. But so because he wasn't born in, he'd already had an education. So he was a biochemist. And so that's sort of how I got to be educated, is that my father and mother advocated for me to get an education. So because I was already going to uni, I met friends at uni. So that's one way that I got to meet people. And because I was going to uni, a lot of people who were fellow students were staying in university accommodation, student lets. And so I went to go and look at that because I'd been fellowshipped, or maybe in the previous year or around about the same time. So I was looking for accommodation. And so when I went to look at the student accommodation, it was a long way away from what I was used to, and I had no friends there. Well, I had a friend from high school, and she was renting a house with 2 other girls, and there was 4 bedrooms. So I really got lucky, like you. I sort of found someone and I was able to move in. So there was 4 of us, big old house, 4 bedrooms, and we each sort of did our own thing, and we were each studying. So I sort of got lucky, and then sort of I took every opportunity. So, if someone said, do you want to go out to this thing, even if I didn't really feel like it, I would say yes. It was that faking it till you make it thing. And like you, I'm sometimes extroverted and sometimes introverted, which they call, there's a word for it. It's called an ambivert.
Oh,
so, Danny, you and I are ambiverts. Sometimes we're externally, looking for communication, and sometimes we need time by ourselves. That's called an ambivert.
I think they put me in a corner sometimes by myself on purpose, but that's
Yes.
It's just like I need some alone time.
So it's taking the opportunities when you see them, and also forcing yourself when you're not up to it, actually forcing yourself to take the opportunities when they're presented.
I just wanted to, you were on this panel thing, and was that your father in the audience, the guy with the beard?
It is my father in the audience, yes.
Yeah, so there he is there. Is that right? Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Change into a lady. Hold it. That says your dad.
That's my dad. Yeah.
Right. And I couldn't figure out whether everyone that went along to this so he wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. But
so at that time he was an ex-JW.
Oh, he was
former Jehovah's Witness. He had left by that time. But he had been the type of person, we all were, the type of person who would shun other people. Because that's what he was required to do. So he had not deliberately shunned my sister. I think, so the person on the right in the pink is my sister, my younger sister, Nadia. I'm on the left-hand side of this TV program on family estrangement. And I think my sister didn't realise that my dad has undiagnosed autism, so he has Asperger's. So parts of his personality, I think, were caused by his, I guess, social inadequacy, and not just by the shunning, but we were certainly all shunned by each other.
I watched this and it really upset me, not because of your story, but it was your story, but all these people because I think I'll just say what I'm thinking really is what I've found is I'll just click the right screen, is what I've actually found is this organization actually is a destroyer of families. And I'm looking at your situation here, and I could line my family up on the stage and tell a similar story. And then you still have this thing called love. It's an oxymoron. It's like, I love you, but I don't want anything to do with you.
Yes, it's the reason why I went onto that program was it was on family estrangement, and we were certainly all estranged, and we're still mostly estranged. And I had this ideal picture in my mind, which was, you go on the Dr. Phil show and Dr. Phil helps your family work everything out. This is the idea I had in my mind when I went on that program. I thought, if I just make it public and we all talk about it, we'll be able to resolve it and move on. Well, the opposite happened. So sadly, I had the best of intentions, but it turned out to be very dramatic. And I found that in that program, called the Insight Program in Australia, we weren't the only ones who were suffering from family estrangement. So there was one guy there whose father had been cheating, and that's why their family was estranged. There was another one there whose mother was a strict Asian lady and didn't want him to be with his Aussie girlfriend, and so that's why the family was estranged. But what was unique about our situation was that this wasn't personal decisions that we made ourselves. This was mandated shunning by a religious institution who is receiving charitable benefits. And that's what I wanted shown.
Yeah, and that's so this lady there, was she actually a Jehovah's Witness?
No, they weren't all Jehovah's Witnesses. Only my family was. This is the lady who, Jenny, who was the Asian lady who had taken a dislike to her son's girlfriend.
Wow, and shunned him because of that. It will distance him and didn't want anything to do with him. So it was an ultimatum because this young guy here.
That's her son.
Yeah, and it was actually, I think it's well worth a watch. I will put it in the description so people can have a look at it. But 365,000 people have watched that on YouTube so far, and no doubt it was on their website as well. So that's quite amazing. But we hear these stories all the time. you know, because you're not allowed to. Your friend, is it Stephen?
You mean Stephen from Say Sorry?
This
Stephen
guy sitting
Unbank?
next. This guy sitting next to you on here, is that Stephen, or has I got that mixed
No,
up?
that's Rick Morton. He's a journalist. He wrote a book actually about his family estrangement, and
Right.
his story was his father was cheating, and
Right. That's
it
right.
was uncovered.
Yes.
And then I won't. The story is actually really, really interesting, and he wrote a book about it. I won't tell you sort of the punchline, but the cheating was revealed, and his brother befell a terrible accident. And I was actually in tears when I started speaking from listening to his story.
Mm.
Yeah, it was
Well,
a
I
very,
just
very traumatic story.
they've all got stories, which is the problem, isn't it? That's the problem. But I think my other question, what I've got for you here, might be a bit of an interesting one. Let's say I've got meeting a new person in your life and explaining your upbringing all over again is really a deterrent when you meet somebody new in your life, like a partner.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you know, it's like, oh, here we go. Here's my story, and that's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, and you can just keep going layers and layers of back of horror stories, and
yeah,
and you know, and it's all like, oh, don't worry, I haven't got a problem. I'm quite normal. It's just I've dealt with it, and it's not really my
yes,
problem. It's what I got to. That's the cards I got dealt with, you know, in life. So it's okay. And then there's always a worse or a story, if that's a word. So you know, and you just got to get on with it. And I think I commend you because you really have got on with it. Because I said to you last night that my new love wasn't God and Jehovah, but it was actually business and money. And I went out there and made a name for myself in the business world at the time, and I did quite well for myself, which was a taboo thing to do in the Jehovah's Witness faith. Like, you're not allowed to go to university. You're discouraged to get any qualifications. You're meant to get a part-time job and spend the majority of your life knocking on people's doors, um, you know, pushing the Watch, Chair and Awake magazines down people's throats. And not only
yes,
that, you're kept busy for 5 hours a week. You have to go to 5 meetings,
or
you know,
more. Yeah,
and you have to
witnessing.
study for them. So it's like you're continuously at university, but for the religion,
Yeah.
you know. I have got a few more questions here, but I thought what we could do is bring up your PDF and you can explain about it. Would that be good?
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
that would be good. Just as you're doing that, I might speak to what you just said, Danny. So,
Okay.
um, on that poverty and lack of education, I've actually written a government submission on that. We had a parliamentary inquiry in Australia in the last 12 months on poverty, and I actually wrote all about that. How Jehovah's Witness men should be working in construction, or we should be window washers, and the women are meant to stay at home and have children, and bring them up in the religion. And there's a lot of cleaning work, and I actually put in a picture of a window washer
Yeah.
in my government submission. So it was really clear. And the
Mm,
Jehovah's Witnesses protested against that. But
no
we know
way.
it's the truth. And if you have a look online to all of people's stories, you can see how many of them are window washers, which I never realized inside.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing that you said is when you tell people your story, I never used to tell people my story because I was so embarrassed about it. And I
Mm,
remember going to a conference in London about 6 years ago, a one-day conference that was put on by a law firm and a media company. And I remember the producer of a documentary that was working with Trey Bundy, he's a journalist in the US, he came up to me and he was talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. And I said, why are you interested in this? It's so boring. And he said, I find it fascinating.
yeah.
Well, that changed my whole outlook. I thought, here I am feeling awkward and uncomfortable, and I don't
Mm,
want to talk about it, but the world is interested. And now
yes.
you see so many cult programs, they're
Mm.
really interested. So, this is why we take this opportunity to talk about it today.
If I ever did get educated and I went to university, I would study psychology. It fascinates me. Why do we act? This is what I do. I spend 70 or 80 hours of my week going into Zoom meetings, going after people who are listening to scammers, and I'm trying to figure out why they do it. And then I use a parallel of, we used to go to the conventions and we'd have 2,000, 3,000 people in the audience, all listen to one guy on the stage giving announcements about what the organization is doing next. And everyone's going, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And they brought out a new book. Wow. And it's been researched and I've watched a couple of your videos recently for some reason. And you mentioned in one of your videos that they use horror pictures and scare the bejesus out of the kids. The Crimson book, the wee book, I remember that and it opened it up, and I always remember the picture of fire, hell, and torment. And we don't even believe in hell, but they wrote.
That's a good point.
They did a friggin' awesome, amazing picture to show pitchforks and fire and torment, and that was to describe Gehenna. So, for those people who don't know, the word hell is actually from an ancient city called Gehenna, and they used to continuously burn rubbish and I think even maybe bodies. I'm not sure. So that word hell come from Gehenna. So to pictureize that, a burning torment or fire is where the wicked people would go. Now, modern day Christianity sort of say that hell was a fiery torment. And I used to love using that illustration where if there is a heaven, who runs heaven? And people would say, God. And you go, and if there is a hell, who runs hell? And they go, Satan. And you go, but when somebody's good or bad, who's the person that works out whether they should go up or down? And then they go, well, I see, do God and Satan get together and work it out? And then they're two opposing entities. So, it's all, I used to use these reasonings with people. We used to knock on their door.
Question.
Like, I don't know, because on a Thursday night, we used to learn how to overcome objections. So if I knocked on your door and said to you, I'm going to try this on you, knock, 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 knock.
Hello?
Yes. Hello, my name's Danny, and this is my lovely friend Jeremiah. We're just in the neighborhood, and we thought we'd knock on your door, and we're two Jehovah's Witnesses. And then what would most people say?
Not interested.
Is it religion that you're not interested in, or is it Jehovah's Witnesses that you're not interested? And how would you normally answer?
I'm not interested in Jehovah's Witnesses teachings.
Oh, no, you meant to say, I'm not interested in religion. And then
you
you go,
word me up, Danny, beforehand then.
Yeah, I know. And then you go, oh, I can understand that, because religion is responsible for a lot of the mayhem in the world. Wouldn't you agree? And then they're going, well, yes. And let me show you, are you interested to know why that all these bad things are happening at the moment? And then you bring out your Bible and show them probably Matthew 24:14 or something, is it? That's the Lord's, I'm forgetting them all now, but used to know the Bible scriptures off by heart. And, and have an
We
answer
certainly
for everything.
learned passages by rote, and it was the same old wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah. I mean, Revelations 21:3 and 4, John 1:1, Matthew 24:14. I haven't even looked at the Bible for 31 years. And I can probably remember the names. How many? I've forgotten how many chapters in the Bible there is, but there's a New Testament, Old Testament. But I could probably rattle off the names of the Bible before I could rattle off the alphabet. Because
it's scary because I've been out more than a quarter of a century, but I can still remember the lyrics to the songs that we had to listen to, even when in the toilet at the Kingdom Hall.
We speak out in fearlessness.
Yeah.
Ours is the God of true prophecy. And I haven't heard that for 30 years.
I could actually finish off. I was thinking about finishing off the lyrics, but I mean, that's how subversive and how brainwashed we were, that over a quarter of a century later, we still know the words, and we've never sung it together, yet we could. Can I just mention, because you mentioned hell and who makes the decisions, fun fact, I've actually been to hell. Have you?
Gehenna, no. Outside Jerusalem?
No, there's a village or a town in, was it Norway? I think it was Norway. So somewhere in Scandinavia called Hell. So I've been there. It's pretty quiet, and it was quite cold. Oh,
well, how about that? Well, there you go. It's one country. I'd love to read through the countries that we've been to. I would probably talk all night on that, really. I've got another question. Meeting new people in your life. Oh, and I've done that one. Would you? All right. So I'm gonna go to the family thing again. One thing that nerked me when I listened to your that program, that video, which I forgot the name of already, and I've closed the window.
The Insight program on family estrangement. Yeah.
Yeah, because my mum said that she shunned me out of love, and they shun people out of love, hoping that when they discommunicate them, that they'll be like the prodigal son, hit rock bottom, and then in their head think, I've lost everything. I have no choice but to become a Jehovah's Witness again. And they say they do that out of love. And I have always pulled people up on that, because my mum, which I do love, is selfish, because the only person she really loves is herself, because she will do anything to get into that paradise earth. Now, I do love her, and I'm not saying she's a horrible person because she wants to live forever in a paradise earth, but she doesn't put her children first, because if she did, she would be in my life right now. But I think it's a selfish religion. That's what I'm probably really getting. It is actually all about that person. I mean, I used to literally at school not talk to the kids because they all were going to get destroyed. I wouldn't be in any sports team because we don't want to socialize. And Jehovah's Witnesses would hang around other Jehovah's Witness kids. And, I met a guy I hadn't seen for 25 years the other day. And I said, I didn't know whether you were alive because as you were really he always lived life on the edge, and he went off the rails. He was like a spring. They used to talk about people that get released into the world like a spring. They've been held back all their life, and all of a sudden they do drugs, they speed, and they just live reckless lives because they feel like their life is going to end, because all your life you've been told that the world's going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So you think, I might as well live life to the full and do whatever I want before the world disappears. And and I just remember, I just gave him a big hug. And he's a big guy. Neville Aiden is his name. He's a friggin' was it his father? Stephen Aiden, sorry. His father was an elder called Neville Aiden and Steve Aiden. And it was like just two brothers catching up and
Yeah, the
looking at each
connection.
other going, we made it. We got
Yeah.
out of this stupid thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was all my real sort of fun questions. And I mean, I know that you are an activist. I'm really proud of actually being able to interview you and hear what you've done, because you've really have actually stuck your neck out in what you're doing. And
Thank
I
you,
just want to
Danny.
say thank
Just
you.
on your friend that you were talking about. Oh, yes, we'll talk about this. Just on your friend you were talking about. Look, that does happen to a lot of former Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's not because they're bad people. It's that they're exploited, they're vulnerable, and they're left without a safety net. Everybody wants to be connected to their family and friends, and to have that pulled out from under you like a carpet. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're inherently bad. We know that people commit crimes when they are Jehovah's Witnesses. So I think the best thing is if the organisation stops its mandated shunning policy, which they partially have done, but it's not applied to everyone 100%. Okay, let's talk about this. Please go ahead.
No, I love talking I'd rather talk about what you're talking about, because the shunning thing is actually the most cruelest thing you can do to a person.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. There's been a very interesting dissertation done on it by a lady by the name of Julia Goodsell, and her paper was called, let me see if I can remember it correctly, Shunning a Loving, what did they used to say? A loving...
Provision? No.
Say again?
A provision?
Provision, that's right. That's what her dissertation's called, with a question mark, as in, is it really a loving provision? And we know it's not. So there actually is a group, there's a website called something like Make Shunning a Crime. I might look it up because I think people will be interested in that.
All right. I'll use my clever technology.
And then we can talk about this.
What's it called?
I'm just quickly looking it up now. StopMandatedShunning.org. StopMandatedShunning.org. I'll just hold it up. It looks like this.
Yeah, okay. I just wonder if I can bring it up, but it's victim.
But I certainly agree with that idea.
Text it to me and I'll bring it up on the screen if we can. That'd be quite cool.
Oh, okay. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. So this article, thank you for bringing it up.
Just before you carry on there, we've got 19 people in the chat room, so that's awesome. It's more than I normally have when I'm busting scams. Maybe I'm pushing the wrong profession. If you have any questions you'd like to ask us, please chuck them in the box, the question box, and I'll bring them up and we'll have a go. But let's get into this. Right, back to you.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly send you the link to this so you can bring it up later. Just give me 1 second.
That's up. 1 second's not long enough.
Yes.
1 second is not long enough.
So the reason why we had this article done, I'm just leaning forward so I can read it. So it says cash kept from child victims. So we made allegations to the government and to the media
I didn't read the title before. So you're saying that cash kept from child victims. Cash kept from who? Who had the cash?
So the cash is held by the Jehovah's Witnesses. So if I just do you want me to read part of this article, or do you want me to just give you a summary of it? Or
well, it's fine. I think it'd be nice to. You'll be really familiar with this, and I know you put a lot of work into this. So you do whatever you feels fit. Give it justice.
Yeah. So what happened was, in Australia, we had the Royal Commission into CSA, and what that found is that Jehovah's Witnesses had subpoenaed records by the Royal Commission of 1,006 perpetrators and 1,800 victims that were alleged.
And that was from 1963,
so
wasn't it? They kept records.
They kept records, and they were subpoenaed by the Royal Commission. Yes.
Yeah, and if you don't know this, might be quite shocking. Everyone that come and laid a complaint, no one was ever reported to the police. It was all kept inside the Jehovah's Witness religion. But they kept.
That's correct. Records. Not one was found by the Royal Commission to have been reported.
Yeah.
Some were reported, but not by the religion. They were reported by either the child victim or family members. And we know that some family members that reported and took perpetrators to court were then subsequently shunned, and child victims were also shunned. So what we found is, I was listening to a couple in the US, and you know them, Mike and Kim Brooks.
Yes.
I was listening to them talk about the number of kingdom halls that were sold by the Jehovah's Witnesses. And we now have a spreadsheet with billions and billions of dollars worth of kingdom halls and assembly halls, Bethels, sold.
This is the map, I think. You're talking about the map that I'm going to bring up when I get down there?
I think there is a graph that shows the assets sold. This story was Australian, but this was a global sales. And what we found, that the Jehovah's Witnesses were essentially selling off all of their properties and amassing a huge amount of cash. And at that time, they had refused to join the redress scheme in Australia. Now, the redress scheme is essentially a compensation scheme comprised of three parts. So the first part is compensation for the child victim. The second part is an amount of money, $5,000 Australian, to provide for mental health counselling. Not enough, but at least it was in there. Something. And the third thing was an apology. And at that time, so I think it was for the first 2 years, if I remember correctly, the Jehovah's Witnesses refused to join the scheme. All of the others joined, like the other religions joined. And it was like the Jehovah's Witnesses and a pony club and some other cult didn't join. Everybody else then subsequently did join up, and the Jehovah's Witnesses were really embarrassed, and they were named and shamed by the government for not joining. So subsequently, after this article was published, they joined. So what we exposed were allegations that they had a lot of child abuse, that they were selling off a lot of properties, liquidating their assets, and that they could afford to pay. But I think the biggest allegation in this article was that they were offshoring the money. So the money that they were amassing, we alleged that it was being offshored from Australia to other countries. So the article there says Jehovah's Witnesses accused of selling off assets and moving cash to avoid the abuse compensation. So that was the redress scheme. So after we made those allegations, hey presto, interesting, they joined the scheme. And then they took this news media company to court to have this article removed. Not because it was untrue, not because the allegations were false, but for another reason that I can't reveal here. They have a lot of legal entities, and what they do is they have, and you'll be very familiar with this, Danny.
I'm trying not to smile too much, but it just brings joy to my heart. I'm trying not to smile too much because I do know a little bit about this, and it's
Yeah, they Phoenix.
Yeah.
They Phoenix. So they use different alter ego legal entities to trick governments. Oh, not the New Zealand government. New Zealand government. Oh well, actually, they partially did trick them. But anyway, New Zealand government and the Attorney General in New Zealand is quite savvy to what they do. They now know their tricks. But yes, this article alleges. So I'll take you through those. If you go through the first page.
I want to explain to people about the Kingdom Hall. So when I was a
Yes.
painter and a decorator, our congregation we were growing too much, and we needed to build a new Kingdom Hall. So we would be saving and be encouraged to put money into the contribution boxes, and we'd get stories about how the contribution boxes had cobwebs in them. And if you can afford to give money, please do. And then you would save until you had enough deposit to build a Kingdom Hall. And then the Kingdom Hall would be built, and I get this, within 1 weekend. They would do the foundations. All the foundations the plans may have been provided by Bethel, as we called it. And then they'd get about 400 tradesmen from all over the South Island, and we'd build this Kingdom Hall in 48 hours. And I was a painter and a decorator, so that's what I'd do. I'd have 30 people behind me helping me, passing me things. I sprayed, I wallpapered, I jib stopped, and we had the whole place carpeted. And they had the meeting often in the evening on the Sunday after the hall, and it was an amazing thing to be part of. Then all these Kingdom Halls were handed over to the organization. That's what we're talking about here. So slave labor, if you want to call it that. And then all the money that was used to save was from the people who helped build them. So theoretically, the Kingdom Hall was owned by the congregation, and then the organization said, we'll take that. So if I said, who's the biggest real estate company in the world? You probably won't get this right, but it's actually McDonald's. But you don't ask the educated people, you think, what do McDonald's sell? Chips and hamburgers. And this is very similar to the Jehovah's Witness organization. They've got Kingdom Halls. Like in my city of 500 people, I think we've got 5 or 6 Kingdom Halls. They have, very good land as well. The land is often paid off over years, saved and borrowed in steel. They get land donated to them, and it's a real racket. So to hit this organization but with money, and then they flinched because they obviously got told that it was going to hurt them financially. And then all of a sudden, all the biblical reasons why they didn't want to do something change. And, they talk about, they bend and flex the rules. And at the end of the day, it does seem like money is their driving force.
Yeah.
I've always said they're actually a printing company,
Danny, we may need to disagree on who's the richest property owner in the world. I think it's probably the Catholic Church.
Oh, it could
be. But because we don't get the figures, it's not as tangible. You could probably get the numbers for McDonald's, but you wouldn't be able to get the numbers for the Catholic Church. But I think it would be a religion.
I now got to ask you, have you been to the Vatican?
I have been to the Vatican. It's quite beautiful.
8 kilometers.
I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. I just looked at the art. Yes, but it did show me the wealth of religion. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool.
Can I go on to just tell you about how the assets were moved?
Yes.
Because this is something you didn't know. So I thought if you don't know it, your listeners might not know it. So let me just take you through how that was done in many countries. So the Jehovah's Witnesses conducted a vote. You know how we're not allowed to vote for the government, but we are allowed to vote in a Kingdom Hall?
Yeah.
As long as the answer is always yes. So they conducted voting across the world, and people voted almost unanimously to move the property assets from the congregations which you just described had been built by us as children. Well, you weren't a child, but I was a child. I was a child of 8, for example, when I was helping to construct Kingdom Halls, building roads and cleaning bricks as an 8-year-old child. Our parents donated, their money, their time, their children. Mike and Kim have done podcasts about how they donated land or not them, but others donated land, donated equipment, earth moving material. Everything was donated. And then, so around about a decade ago, depending on what country you were in, the Jehovah's Witnesses held votes in each congregation to move the property assets, that is your own Kingdom Hall, from being owned by your congregation to being owned by head office. And so what that meant was, instead of them being owned at a local level, the wealth was consolidated into other legal entities. And that allowed, when they sold the properties, the cash to go into their accounts, and clearly not ours, or not those of current Jehovah's Witnesses. And in fact, some Jehovah's Witnesses now need to travel over an hour to get to their congregation. And what happened during COVID? Remaining congregations that hadn't been sold, or Kingdom Halls that hadn't been sold, went online. So then they became sort of TV evangelists. Now, not all of those Kingdom Halls have been reopened. The Jehovah's Witnesses say it was all about COVID. I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I allege it was nothing to do with COVID, and it was convenience.
I backed away from all this stuff, but I reckon they were trying to go become a TV show. What do they call it? A TV, you know what I mean? Like a YouTube.
Evangelists.
Yeah, TV evangelists. That's what they were doing. Yeah.
That's in fact what they've become. So
Yeah.
I think it's very convenient that they state that the excuse is COVID, but they were already transferring the assets. They were already closing the Kingdom Halls. They had already moved online. And I think COVID was just a welcome screen for them to pull across, because now much of it has been liquidated. That's what the article was about. Now you're showing something else.
I just got distracted on that, but I just looking at that picture, and I have to say that I don't know, that freaks me out, that picture, because they've got people here which probably are, well, I never want to go after the people, because I know I was brainwashed and I was brought up in it, and I really did believe I was doing the right thing at the time, and and as long as they're not hurting anybody, does it really matter, Danny? Well, it does matter, because I was born into this thing. And I remember saying to my mum, I didn't have a choice. And she, oh, don't be so ridiculous. You made a decision to get baptized at 15 or 16. And I said, I had no other choice but to get baptized, because it was,
as a child.
I was drummed into me. And then all of a sudden you get baptized and you've given your life away to Jehovah.
Yeah.
And I said, but I just see these sort of pictures, they actually do my head in. But I don't want to get distracted. I'll go back to these Kingdom Hall pictures here, we can. But I just want
so what we also alleged in this article was that what I noticed was, when I looked at the database of Jehovah's Witness properties that were being sold, I noticed that it was the Kingdom Halls that were being sold where I knew that abuse had happened. That's what I noticed. I thought, hang on a second. I know someone that was abused in that Kingdom Hall. Hang on a second. I know someone who was also abused in that other Kingdom Hall. And I started to see a pattern. Actually, wow. If you look back at the numbers, as I said before, there was 1,800 alleged victims, and we had just over 800 congregations. So if you do the maths, you will find that that's more than 2 victims on average per congregation, per Kingdom Hall. Sorry, congregation. And that means actually the victims were in every congregation pretty much. And so perhaps my assumption no longer holds true, that they were selling where there were victims as a priority, because potentially every congregation had victims, alleged victims. So what you're looking at there is some numbers. So that 536, they were the number of Jehovah's Witnesses that agreed that they were perpetrators.
They've agreed. They've confessed.
In Australia. And that shows you the breakdown underneath that. There's a graph there that in Queensland there are 306 perpetrators. In New South Wales, there were 270. In Victoria, there were 140. So there's some breakdowns here about the money, about how the victim numbers, about the perpetrator numbers. So there's quite a lot of detail.
Hey, this is a bit of a joke. I know that's not funny, but I've got it. My viewers will know the name. Does the name Carl Miller ring any bells to you?
Is that the guy that said he was Jesus Christ and his wife was Mary? No?
No. We
AJ
found out
Miller, I'm thinking of. Sorry. Who's Carl Miller?
One of our scammers actually found he had a criminal record, and he's actually meant to be on the Australian offenders list, but we haven't got any proof because I've tried to contact them to find out. But everyone that watches my stuff would know who. They'll be laughing right now because we actually go after them and call them those sort of names. Don't know why I haven't been banned on YouTube yet, but anyway.
Which names? Perpetrators or?
Oh, he's a kiddie fiddler, but we've got
Oh,
no
I see.
proof. But I've had two
Yes.
people ring me up saying they know him personally, and they said he's got a history of it. And just while we're talking on about the kiddie fiddlers, when my mum was, she'd just gone through a divorce. She had a real rough life herself. So when the Jehovah's Witness knocked on her door, to her, being part of a community was something she was lacking in life. So she latched onto it. And I think they do go after those type of people, because I noticed one thing I didn't like when they had all these missionaries overseas, they seem to go to the third world countries and offer them these amazing paradise pictures. And, they latch onto the organization. And then every convention that we went to, we've now got 12 million people around the world that are Jehovah's Witnesses. And every year we're a growing organization. And at the end of the day, it just seems like they're growing people to build their wealth. And obviously now at the other end of it, we can see that they are concerned about the wealth, but they're also preaching a picture that we're in the last days of the last days of the last days, and the world's going to end any day tomorrow. But the stuff that they're doing here is actually building their generational wealth.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like, it's what do they call it when you're
hypocritical?
Yes. And it's like,
very hypocritical. So just to be clear, they've never had 12 million members. They've only got 8 million, but I mean, they had 8 million. We think the numbers are actually declining, and that they are lying about their membership growing. We think their membership is very much shrinking.
We get that all the time with my scams. They always lie about the numbers. And I mean, these guys, I should be busting these guys for scams. Because
I think you should, Danny. We should talk about that again later. But I really think you might be able to get some wins here. We've got a lot more allegations. Can I go back to something you mentioned before, which was about slave labour with these the Kingdom Halls? So I've also made a government submission about modern slavery. And what I've alleged in that is that we were modern slaves, and in my case, I was a child slave. Unfortunately, it wasn't a Commonwealth crime when it happened to me, but I allege that I was a child slave. I had to build roads, I had to clean bricks, I had to sell literature, I had to do gardening. I had to try and get new members, so deceptively recruit other children. There was lots and lots of ways that I was used as a modern slave. Now, I'm not the only one who's made a submission about this. I made a submission in Australia 6 years ago about it. And then there was a second modern slavery parliamentary inquiry in Australia, and I made a much more detailed parliamentary inquiry submission about it. And then in the UK, they also have a modern slavery parliamentary inquiry, and the reporting is going to happen there soon. I think it's this year. I think it's maybe by November they have to report, although the government's changed, so I might be off on the timing. But I think it was 6 people have made submissions from 5 different countries now about slave labour within the Jehovah's Witnesses, making up more than 5% of all submissions received by the government. So slavery may be a topic that may grow in time when people realise how they've been deceptively recruited to be used for their labour in the organisation.
Do you think they might pay me some money for the hours and hours of the Kingdom Halls I did?
It would be nice. Well, I remember when I was a child or teenager that my grandparent and my great aunt were remunerated for being used by Hitler in the Second World War as slaves in Germany, they received $2,000 each as a result of the Holocaust Fund, which the Jehovah's Witnesses helped them to claim, by the way.
Wow. Hey, I've got a bit of useless information. You might know the answer to this, and it's probably a wee bit weird, but I'm going to say it anyway, and I could be wrong. But
Yep.
I heard that the Jehovah's Witnesses are invested in Walt Disney. Not Walt Disney, what do they call it? The fun park? It is Walt Disney, right?
Yes.
They have shares in that organization. Now, Walt Disney also has some connection with Pornhub. So technically speaking, that's what I've heard. I think it was Mike and Kim were telling me this. So that means the Jehovah's Witnesses have got financial interest in a porn site for financial gain. Now, I don't know if you know anything about that, but that's what I heard from, I'm pretty sure it was Mike and Kim. They mentioned something about how, technically speaking, the organization has got investments in other entities. And if one of them, that was just a funny fact, but I mean, it's kind of like, why would they do that?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't really follow. Stop on that page, Danny. Can I come back to that one in just a second on that graph? Yeah. I just want to take people through that. Just on your question, it wouldn't surprise me if they did that. The thing is, it's not illegal to have shares in Walt Disney. So I'm not that interested in stuff that's not illegal. That's I'm very interested in fraud, and I'm very interested in criminality, and I'm interested in the things that they do that are criminal. So to be honest, I don't follow everything that they do. I'm just interested in the criminal aspects. Yes. And you just mentioned, let me come back to this graph in just a second. You mentioned kiddie fiddling just now.
Yep.
What I did want to say about that is and versus the Catholics, by the way, I say that the Jehovah's Witnesses have per capita the highest volume of kiddie fiddling, because we don't want to say the CSA word.
Just a fact that we can't speak freely as we like on YouTube, because automatically the robots pick up any words that we have as medical advice. So so
we'd rather use the real
your
words.
Imagination, but that's why we're struggling a wee bit. But that's
right. So I say that they're the worst organisation for supporting that, and the reason why I say that is because the Catholics, in a population in Australia of almost of 20% of the country, almost a quarter of the country, only had numbers of 4,444. A really easy number to remember: 4444.
144,000. That's going to be Earth ruling over the earth. Oh, where did that come from? That's 30 years ago. I've talked about that.
Yeah.
The 12 disciples and the 12 men that look after the governing body.
So the Catholics only had 4,444 alleged victims in a population nearly a quarter the size of Australia, like 5 million. Whereas the Jehovah's Witnesses had just less than half of that, 1,800, in a population of just 68,000 members at the time. The per capita number is much higher. And I say that they're worse because they didn't join the redress scheme. Okay, now they have, but we believe they're not compliant.
They didn't have one of. They had one of these calculators, and where's my calculator gone?
And they didn't say sorry. They still haven't said sorry. So sorry, say that again about the calculator.
Oh, I'm just saying that they had to sit there and work it out what was the best financial decision to make.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right about that. So I feel that they are the worst, and I've alleged that they are the worst because it's hidden. It's been secreted away. They didn't report any, as you said before. So I actually allege that they're the most dangerous for children, and in fact, the Royal Commission branded them a non-child safe organisation, and that really hasn't changed. So that graph that you had, let's actually talk about that for a second.
My mum, which I talked about earlier on, she found two respectable people in the organisation that were going to be my godparents if my mum ever passed away. Now the couple had a daughter, and when my mum got married for the second time, they babysitted us. Now I found out just a year ago that my godfather, who was going to look after me if my mum ever passed away, actually was a kiddie fiddler. His daughter was kiddie fiddled with another elder in the same congregation, and I found out about that as well.
Yeah.
And they're all still, the two people, my godfather died, and also the other elder of the church, which used to, I think he was, I don't think I ever was in a judicial committee with him. We'll explain that one other day. But here's two people I just knew in my
Yeah.
congregation. And now I'm thinking back and I'm thinking, who else?
Yeah.
But,
I'm so glad you said that because I've got a similar story, and that is, so in my family, there have been 4 Jehovah's Witness girls who were abused by 3 separate Jehovah's Witness men. And in my particular case, when I went to report, I've made a number of police statements. And one of the police statements that I made includes 16 children that I knew of, because over time I collected some names. Oh, this friend of mine in this congregation, or this friend of my sister in that congregation. I collected the names and the names of the perpetrators, and I reported them to the police. And 16, Danny. I mean, who else do you know that knows as many that we do? That's how bad it is that we know so many personally.
I've got the other side of it is the people that aren't here with us anymore and chose to leave the planet on their own merits. That's my big. That's why I do what I do, because I had 2 people in my family who disappeared for that reason. But I want to make a point that people who may be listening may be thinking of, and they may think that you're in a religion and now you're a crusader to get back at the religion because of your life. Well, both Lara and myself have chosen to come back into this fight after living a full life. And it's only been it's when my niece, who married a 45-year-old guy at the age of 25, and that kind of happened in the Jehovah's Witness thing. She caught her husband. She was suspicious about her husband having an affair. She set up a camera, caught him in the act, and then they both went to a judicial committee. She got kicked out because she wasn't repentant for whatever she did, and he remained in the church. Now, she lives 10 doors down from my brother's, where he lives, 10 doors down. Now, he's just shunned her and discommunicated her, and she was really struggling. She got herself a lovely man in her life again. I think she's got a child on the spectrum. She's struggling, but she's a love. And I looked at her and thought, then I come in to her life, and I hadn't seen her I saw her when she was a kid, about 5 years of age. And then I'm looking at this lady who's now 30 years of age, if not, it was 30 years of age. I've had nothing to do with her life. And her father's down the road shunning her and trying to force her to come back into a religion. And I thought, no, I'm going to become, what do you call that word? Activist.
Activist, yeah.
And I'm going to fight.
Whistleblower.
I'm not going to let her do this for the next 25 years, keeping her mouth shut, and she still doesn't want to talk about it. But I think, so that's why we've come back into this, to fight the battle. We're in a good frame of mind. We're living life. We've lived life. We're doing things. We actually enjoy fighting other people who we don't want them to go through something that we've been through. So,
no, I don't want children to have to go through this. I want them to be accountable for what they did.
Yeah, we can make the bastards, we can hurt them. Financially is where you can hurt these guys. You go after their assets because they're trying to protect their assets. Explain your graph if you want. Is that what we're...
Yes. I think it's really useful as a summary. So if you put it back on. So the reason why this graph starts the year 2004 was because that's when we found they started selling assets that we had records for. So that's why the graph goes back that far. Now, if you go to 2012, that's when the Royal Commission in Australia was announced.
Oh,
then if you go to so you see the assets start being sold after that. Sorry, say that again, Danny.
Oh, I see this. This is where we're on the run.
Oh, as a numbers guy, you're going to love this. Yeah. Okay. It's fascinating. And I actually drew this graph the first time and it blew my mind. So 2014, now that's when the independent inquiry into CSA in the UK started. Okay. Again, you see the assets, excuse me, the properties start to sell.
And this is when you got involved with John Vinery, is that right? Because I've interviewed him in the past, and he was
I
heavily
met
involved in this.
John Viney before then, maybe 2016, when I first went to London for the conference between it was the Reveal Centre for Investigative Reporting and the law firm Bolt Burden Kemp. I think that's when I met John Viney. So yeah, we've known each other a long time now, nearly a decade.
That is nice.
Then if
He's
you
a
go
window
to
cleaner. Did you know that?
Yes, I've seen him window clean. Can you believe last year I was actually in Wales visiting John Viney, and I went out to get a coffee when he did his window cleaning round. And while we went out for a coffee and he was working, there were Jehovah's Witnesses on the street, in the town hall. Are you pulling up a photo of John Viney?
No, I'm actually pulling up a photo of I do window cleaning just every now and again, friends, and I just thought you'd laugh at that, but I've got no photo. But yes, even though I advertise myself as a window, I used to do it one day a week, so I put it on my website that I do window cleaning. The picture's not coming up, Murphy's Law.
So we actually spoke to the Jehovah's Witnesses in John Viney's congregation while he was window cleaning in the background. We had our takeaway coffees, and we were talking to them about, why do they still support the Jehovah's Witnesses when they covered up child abuse in that congregation of Barry?
Yeah. I just feel there's so much sadness. I mean, as I say, it destroys families, and they, no one's really stopping these. It's like a runaway freight train in a way. And you've got these.
And we're smiling because these ridiculous stories. It's actually no laughing matter. It's a very serious thing.
I don't think if you didn't have, if I didn't have a sense of humor, it would probably get to me. But
well, we have to laugh or smile, otherwise we'll be crying because this is so serious. I'll go back to this one. So if I just now look at 2018, in 2018, there was an inquiry into an independent inquiry started in Germany, in Berlin, and I actually went to Berlin. I can't remember if it was last year or a couple of years ago. I think it was last year, and provided information to the Berlin Commission. Yes. And that report is due out, but has been extended. And interestingly, like the New Zealand Royal Commission, sometimes the Jehovah's Witnesses try to pull a Swiftie over the authorities, and they're onto it, and they extend their inquiries to catch them out. That's exactly what happened in New Zealand. The next thing on the graph is 2017, a class action was started in Canada. And we know that recently Canadian class action failed because they had the wrong legal entity. And this is what I mean about phoenixing, Danny. It's really serious that they are using what I call dummy or phoenix legal entities to trick the authorities and lawyers into choosing the wrong legal entity to take to court. It's really serious. That's what happened in Canada. Sorry, you made it a bit small, so I can't see the next one. If you mind.
On your phone.
Thank you. Then your Royal Commission started in 2018. Your Royal Commission started. And I don't know if you have been following that. Have you, Danny? Have you followed your Royal Commission?
Not really. I'm sort of making it up as I go here, some of this, but
that's
I
okay.
sort of got tired of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think all of us have to switch off every now and again and try something different. Otherwise, it consumes you.
Yes, but they tried to get out of it, right? The Jehovah's Witnesses tried to get out of it.
Well, when COVID happened, it was just when the Royal Commission was going to, COVID couldn't have come at a better time because there's a period. I think there's only 12 months where you could report a case. And I think COVID happened around about that same time where I thought, oh my goodness, they'll be thinking that's a blessing that COVID come, and they would be saying it's a sign of the time, and they would have milked that. And it was just when all this was happening, and it would be them saying that this is God's way of looking after the organization. No matter when there's all those people, they use all the world events to manipulate their organization into thinking this is the end.
Yeah. So it was unfortunate that COVID happened, but the great thing was that the Royal Commission was extended. I remember being one of the lobbyists who fought to have the Jehovah's Witnesses included in your Royal Commission. So when it was announced, it was an abuse in state care Royal Commission. It did not include religious institutions. We lobbied and lobbied. Many of us around the world got together and we lobbied the New Zealand government to include 1 religions and 2 Jehovah's Witnesses. So that happened back in 2018, and the report has been scathing, it's fair to say, on the Jehovah's Witnesses. The only thing that disappointed me about the Royal Commission is that they didn't subpoena the records, so we don't know the numbers. But we do know from what the Attorney General said and what the council said during the High Court case, and I attended one of those days in Wellington, that the numbers were high. We know that because they said that during the case, and I can't recall if it was in the report, probably is. Many people can comment here because they would have watched it intensively. Then the next thing that happened in 2019 was there was an independent inquiry in the Netherlands, which the Jehovah's Witnesses again tried to stop. And then the grand jury in Pennsylvania was initiated in 2020. Now, I know something about the Pennsylvania grand jury because I helped to fund the report that got the grand jury started. So the people who wrote the grand jury report for Pennsylvania actually started in New York. And those 2 people that wrote the report were Barbara Anderson, who is a well-known, the original whistleblower, really, who found the abuse records at head office. So Barbara Anderson initiated a report for the New York Attorney General, and the person who wrote that, the author, was Stephen Unthank. And I helped to fund the lobbying to start the grand jury in Pennsylvania. So that's now been going, what's the year, 2024? It's now been going for 4 years. And if I remember correctly, 16 people have been arrested, many of them elders. Sorry?
Really? That's brilliant. I didn't know that.
Yes, 16 people at least have been arrested, many of them elders. And that grand jury is ongoing. So we expect a lot more to come out of it. Watch that space. And as you can see, as these independent inquiries were happening in each of the countries, you can see the graph growing. It's actually exponential. If you look at the curve, it's like a hockey stick.
I can hear one word, and that is retreat, retreat, retreat.
Yes.
Let's take our assets back to the cave.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, the organization is the backbone of all Jehovah's Witnesses' lives, because we used to have a major convention every year, and then little assemblies throughout the year. And, we just feed. It was like a school of fish feeding on food, and we were starving for food and updates. And they lead us through this wilderness, so to speak. So you would, every time there's a new book out there, you'd get home, you'd try reading it. And it consumes you in your life. And I used to say this, and I don't know if the stats are right, so I'm making this up, but there was 50% of the congregation were in it because of the brotherhood and the community aspect of it, being part of an organized, part of a group, going out for barbecues, people to hang out with, friends, family. You just could trust your brother and sister. And I've got another question for you, which might be quite interesting in a minute. And the other half of them are in there because they believe the Bible and the biblical scriptures, and you couldn't, and you'd get 2 types, and then the other 10%, which I haven't mentioned, are all the kiddie fiddlers. But
I think that's about right, Danny. And I think that separates sort of down the male-female division. I find, tell me if you think this is along the lines of your thinking, but I find the men are more interested in the doctrine as a general rule. Yeah. And the women are more interested in the community aspect as a general rule. Not hard and fast, but would you say that?
Well, yeah, the woman played a very small role in the organisation, other than getting married at a young age, and like you said earlier on, having babies and having a white picket fence, perhaps. I don't know. The whole lot is just messy to me. I remember. I have such vivid memories of because when my father died at the age when I was 9, because of the way he died, the organisation didn't agree with it, so they sort of left the family to it. And I still remember that. But then, yeah. So I mean, it's just conflicted. What really nerks me about them now is they are changing things that we were told were in the Bible, and this is why we should believe them, because let me show you a scripture on why
Yeah.
this is happening. And now at
Yeah.
the other end of it, like they say to me, "Oh, I've met people. Oh, the organization's so different now, Danny." And I go, "Well, why is it different? Because we were told the Bible's 2,000 years of age, or whatever it is, and we're all scripture led, and now we can change what that scripture says because we live in a different world." And when you
Yeah.
see stuff like this happening, I mean, this is to me like a McDonald's or a Catholic church trying to protect their assets. I mean, to an organization that said we're at the end of the last days. They said in 1970 that the world was going to end, and there was the Jehovah's Witnesses were literally selling their houses and
Yes.
then going out knocking on doors to convert people because the end of the world was happening. Because they used to say that 1914 was the beginning of the sign of the times, and the generation that saw the start of that would also see the end of it. So then when the Bible said 70, they worked that out. So that's 70. So around about when somebody gets to 70, they die. So that's the age. And they thought 1985, they just worked it all out. And then when that went along, they had to come up with another story. And then they said that all the people that was the ones that used to do the Passover, and they used to have them running Bethel or the organization, and they were going to stay alive and see the end. But now they've all died. So now
Yeah.
it's
I think we've both got an interest in the YouTube clips of goat-like personality,
oh,
Jonas.
he's
He
brilliant.
he does a great he does
Yeah.
a great sort of analogy of overlapping generations using goats.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen that before, it's quite a funny way to consider how the Jehovah's Witnesses, chop and change their doctrine as it suits them. And in actual fact, this has happened our whole lives. They've changed the doctrine. So, for example, when my mother was a child, Jehovah's Witnesses were allowed to celebrate birthdays. But for the time that I was a member, you weren't allowed to celebrate birthdays. And I remember when I was young, my mother wanted that's him there, yeah, that's Jonas. He's hilarious.
Oh, he's friggin' amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's a very clever guy,
Yeah.
and he's a nice man, and he's so funny. He's a
Yeah.
funny guy. Um, and what happened with the changing of the doctrine is my dad wasn't allowed to have a moustache and a beard, and then 10 elders approached him, or elders and ministerial servants approached him at a barbecue to tell him off about his
Hello, who's that lady?
that's his wife. Oh, that's me in the middle.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side is his wife. She's going to have a baby soon. And I visited them, I think this is last year.
You've got a banner. I've wanted to do that sort of stuff. We've got to meet up one day when there's a protest on, because I would love to. Is this outside Bethel?
This is outside a convention in Denmark last year.
Oh, you're awesome. Good on you. I mean, you're not afraid, are you? And that's what I really like and admire. I think that, I want to make a difference. And I do believe I've made a difference. And I do
I'd love
believe
to
that
be
you
with you
have
at a
as well.
protest. That would be great.
I've got no shame. I mean, I'm respectful for people who need respect. But, they don't have any respect for me. They ruin families. And I haven't got a chip on my shoulder. I just keep saying that to people. I love life, and I've lived life. I would have lost my life if I was still in that religion, not because of dying or anything, but because I
Danny,
didn't get to live life.
make no mistake, I am scared. I am fearful. But to protect children, I have to work through that. Sometimes I'm riddled with anxiety and I get headaches, and
But you're
I'm
human.
definitely fearful, but it's got to be worked through. We've got to protect children. This organisation, it's hard to be serious when you put up something like that, but this organisation has got to be accountable.
Yeah. I had, I told you last night, but I'll tell the viewers, this guy, a scammer in America, tried to sue me for defamation for $3.8 million in our high court. So I turn up at the high court with the papers after he's trying to serve me papers for 3 weeks. I was literally finding the guy serving the papers, and I had video cameras of him coming into where I worked, and they couldn't find me. And I live in a secure location because of what I do. Anyway, finished up. They dropped off these papers at my accountants, because it's where my registered business is, and then we basically agreed to serve the papers digitally and blah blah blah. Anyway, I had to defend myself, didn't I? And I went to the high court and said, "Oh, I want to do this myself. I don't want to hire big hotshot lawyers." I had to hire $800 an hour lawyers to fight my case. It cost me $33,000, and then they changed their mind an hour and a half afterwards. What happened? I learned how the court system worked.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
very
I thought,
interesting.
and I'm going, bring it on. And all these guys that are coming after me going, we're going to take you to court. I said, bring it on. And I relish the day when I get the documents, and I'll tell you where to deliver them to, because these guys, like, you've got to say allege this, they allege that. But people need to speak out. And then when we get people backing us up, that's enough sometimes. And I think, I'm passionate about it. And I do want to make a difference. But these guys have made a difference in my life, not for the good. So if I can make a difference where it hurts them, their wallets, I just think that's great. This guy, you've got to honestly,
That's the video I was talking about before, the overlapping generation.
right.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But
And
he
what I
does
like
a
about
lot of
this
things
guy,
with goats that are useful.
yeah, he's a goat farmer. But this
Yeah.
guy, you wouldn't think he was intelligent. I mean, I'm not knocking him, but you would look at the video and think he's just having a bit of a joke, and you wouldn't take him seriously. This guy's nothing but serious, and he delivers a message.
Yeah.
And he's been on here before telling people that he's struggling with finances and things, not for asking for money, but because he's authentic, and he's telling people how life is. He's telling people that life has its up and downs, and you rejoice at the ups and you work hard on the lows, and we all need to build friendships, and we need to have good people in our life. And a couple of the questions which I haven't asked you though, I mean, like, how do you finding a best friend, finding someone in your life where you can trust them with money? I remember loaning $1,000 to a guy once, and I thought, I finally found somebody I trust, and I loaned him some money and he paid it back. And I thought, well, that was really hard for me, because I didn't know I had to become a better version of myself. I had to trust people who I told were evil, that were all going to perish. And then I realized that you can have lots of friends, and you can have different types of friends. You can have, people who live life different. You can just find different friends. And like you said, you got into cycling groups. I started at the age of 40, when I was starting over the second time, I was incredibly lonely. So I started helping other people, and I started running social groups, and it finished up turning into organizing 15 different events each week. And that's what I did. And then and then I remember starting up a dinner club where people would go out, and I'd organize dinners and have 40 or 50 people turn up for dinners, and people would leave and not pay their bill, and I'd be lumbered with the bill at the end of the night. I thought, I can't believe this. But anyway, because they forgot. And then people said, oh, you started up these social groups so you can meet women. And I go, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever it was. But it was just funny that my motives have always been questioned. And even being a YouTuber, people think I do this for the money. What's your motive?
The main thing is child protection. So the reason I got involved was because I found out about the Australian Royal Commission into Child Abuse. And I thought, well, I know it's affected a lot of people that I know. And I thought, somebody invited me to a social media online support group, and I didn't really need support. And then I thought, well, maybe I can help other people, because I don't need support, because I've had a life. And I met the love of my life, and, I had a house and I had my education. I thought, well, maybe I can help other people. And my driving force was, how can we prevent this happening to children like us? And that's still my driving force. And sometimes I can actually visualize in front of me children looking at me saying, what have you done for me today? Who have you told about what's happening to me today? How are you helping us? I can see the children in front of me. children I grew up with saying, we need you as the adult to speak for us. And that's what drives me. Danny, I've just got a quick question. That is, we've still got a lot to talk about, but we are way over time because we sort of scheduled an hour. Do you want to keep going, or would you like to reconvene another day, or what would you like to do?
Look, in an ideal world, what I tried doing when COVID was happening is I was trying to get a group of people that wanted to get together and do a weekly thing. That's what I'd love to be able to do, and have 10, ideally. I mean, if I'm just going to bring up this picture of this thing that we're actually meant to be trying to.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because I'm going to need a bathroom break, if that's possible. Could we have a quick intermission?
Yeah, no, we'll go, and I'll just keep going because I can talk all by myself. I have done it.
Great. How do I put myself on pause? Can you put me on pause somehow?
I can do that. I'll do that, and I'll show them all about the conference and the website where you're going.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll just put you on mute so we don't hear the toilet flushing. Is that what we're talking about?
Thanks very much.
All right, see you soon.
Charming.
Yeah, no, working on it. So I'll just turn the mic off for a bit. So this is Decult. Now, the real cool thing about Decult, I'm based in Christchurch, New Zealand, and this conference is actually happening in Christchurch, New Zealand. But the speakers that are coming from all over the world. And sometimes I kind of wonder, whether I'm really involved in what we call the Ex-Jehovah community. And that's people that actually are sort of, vigilantes against the organization. And the lady that's put this all together is really working hard at putting together something really special. So as you can see, you're all welcome to come along. I will just chuck that website address in the chat box if I can find the chat box. Where's that gone? There it is. I'll just get rid of that, and you can have a look. But really nice thing is I do know a lot of these people because I've got a Facebook page, and a lot of these people I'm already connected with. And we also will be interviewing other people. I've got 4 or 5 other interviews which I'm looking forward to. But if you want to be part of this, there's a couple that I got. There's a movie that's been released, and I've talked to some of the people that have. Where's the movie producer? He's in here somewhere. I'm no good with names. You might have figured that out by watching me. He's in there. Where has he gone? But they're coming from all over the world, these speakers, and it should be absolutely amazing. So I'm looking forward to it. Now, this guy here, is that the guy I think it is? Surely not. I'm just going to have a look. And do check out this guy's channel. He's good. I'm just going to see if it's the guy I think it is. No, I don't think it is the guy I'm thinking of. He looks very familiar to another YouTuber who does amazing videos on interviewing scammers. I thought we might have something common there, but that's really cool. So so or I can sort of let's see where you unmute. There you go.
Thank you.
So are you familiar with all the faces on here?
I am familiar with a lot of the faces. So if you scroll from the top, there's Shane Meachin. So Shane Meachin on the left-hand side in the middle there, he is an activist in New Zealand, and he was of particular support for survivors and the Royal Commission in New Zealand.
Yeah, he rang me up 3 weeks ago.
He's a really nice guy.
He watches my stuff, and he might even be watching now. But yeah, he rang me up. And he said, he's just been talking to Kathy. Was it Kathy? I call them Kathy and Kim, but it's not. Is it? It's Kim and what's his name? The American people.
Kim, Mike and Kim.
Mike and Kim. I've got to get that around the right way. But yes, he was on there. He was on their YouTube channel, which is quite nice.
Yes, he did an interview with them. So I recognise the person on the right-hand side there, Lara Kaput. That's a picture of me. If you go, yes, in the middle there, just above that lady.
Yep.
Just above her is a lady with straight hair, long hair. That's Anusha Bradley. Now, she is an incredible journalist who did some terrific work around.
Spent 3 hours talking to her. And she works for Radio New Zealand.
Very, very productive journalist who understands the Jehovah's Witnesses. So she will be moderating our forum. Did you know that, Danny?
Yeah, I
She'll be
do.
asking
Yeah,
us questions. So if you go further up or down,
yeah,
I know that there's another. So Laura McConnell there on the right-hand side with blonde hair.
yeah,
She's a very similar story to mine.
yeah.
It comes from a different cult. So she's from Melbourne, like I am.
Do you like
Lindy
saying the word
Jacob.
cult? Do you like
Sorry.
saying the word? Do you like saying the word cult?
Oh
Do you
yeah,
like?
I think it really suits.
I know, because they hated it and they go, "We're not a cult," and I go, "No, you are." And we don't say it out of spite, but they are a cult because they had one man that started the religion, and that if you know the origins of it all. So I love calling them a cult, but every Jehovah's Witness will deny that they're a cult.
Well, when I first started in activism, it was a real no-no to call them a cult.
Yeah.
And still today, some people will only call them a high control religion, but they're both. So it's appropriate to call them both. That Lindy Jacob, who's on the right-hand side there, she is from the Olive Leaf Network. She actually came along to the High Court case and documented it and wrote it up for the Olive Leaf Network. Next to her on the left is Luke Hollis. Luke there, he has a 3-day growth. Can you see him there? That's it, ex-Jehovah's Witness. He'll be,
Yeah.
I think he's not on our panel, he's on a different panel.
Right.
And I think he's studying psychology. He's a really nice young man.
Oh, clever boy. That's a
I
good way
think
to
he was
say it.
on TV last year. I think
Yeah,
he
no, he
came
was.
to the High Court case and he was on TV afterwards.
Yeah, that's right. No, I remember that. Yeah, was that Gloryville or not? No, it's not that one, is
No,
it?
he's a Jehovah's Witness, ex-Jehovah's Witness. So that was the
So he's
Jehovah's
in
Witness High Court
Amanda.
case.
Amanda would have interviewed him, I think. I think he was on the same article I was.
I think it was a man for the news, but I could be remembering incorrectly. There were other people there I recognised
I'll just go
too.
back to my stick. I'll just bring up that article because I think on here, which is me, but I've got the article where Radio New Zealand. Oh, did I get that in time? Oh, hold it. 1 minute, please, caller. You're taking my bandwidth. I think that they'll try to get that there. There he goes. You probably would have seen, the article, Beware of Crypto. Oh, where's it gone? No, there's an article in there written by her. That's other stuff.
For the Decult conference? Oh, yes, I did see that with Luke.
No, it wasn't the Decult. No, it was she interviewed. I'm pretty sure that was the guy she interviewed, and there was a girl and a guy and a couple, and they did a whole series on a month. Amanda did it, so she would have. Anyway, I'm getting distracted there.
Yeah, so that's Luke Hollis, the former Jehovah's Witness. I think he's studying psychology. Just above him, I recognise Sarah Steele. Sarah Steele is a cult podcaster and she's written a book. So she's from Sydney. And actually, you'll like this, Danny. She was caught up in a scam herself.
Ooh.
So do you know the financial scam that happened in Australia? The woman went missing. She scammed friends and family. She went missing and a shoe turned up with a foot. Do you know that story? I'll look up her name.
Yeah.
Poor Sarah is a relative of hers and was scammed by her. This woman is believed to be dead now. I'm just looking up her name because I'm sure it'll be of interest to you with your side hustle.
I like crypto scams. Here we
It
go.
wasn't a crypto. Sorry, I can't find her name. But anyway.
This is Amanda's article she did on the Jehovah's Witnesses, Something Evil. And if you come down here, it's a month. But this is the couple I thought.
Oh, yes, I've seen that.
Yeah. I thought that was him. That's why I was going,
Okay, yeah, no, I don't know Brad and Cassie. Yeah, unless they use different names.
But look at this. I'm even famous in this one. I think they've got a photo of me in here somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, these videos. Have you seen this video?
I do remember reading this one.
This video is on the Jehovah's Witness website, and they've got this girl that's decided the mum and dad are kicking her out of home, and she has to leave home because she doesn't want the religion anymore. It's but they're doing the right thing, and they've got a mum doing the dishes, and the phone rings, and she looks down and see it's the daughter trying to reach out to mum, and mum's did the right thing and just ignores daughter, and it's like, oh my God, give me a bucket, But But yeah, it's quite good actually, and I think there's one of me in here somewhere. I'll just show my own photos. You know how it is. There we go. Look at that, man about town.
So what does it
Yeah.
say about you there? Because I remember reading this article, but I don't remember this.
Yeah, I lost everything, and loneliness. There you go. Told you I was into the loneliness thing. And the loneliness, what they bargain with your family and friends.
Yeah, I say
Yeah.
they hold them captive. And actually, just before I went to the bathroom, you were talking about how you find friends. So I thought of another way
Yes.
that I did it. Not only did I find it through groups like hiking, rock climbing, and university, I also, when I had different jobs working for corporations, what I did was I'd go out for drinks with everyone after dinner, after work on Friday.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would just go and have a drink or two with workmates, and you get to know people that way. So I'd say I've had quite a few jobs, and in all the jobs I've had, because I was a consultant, in all of the jobs that I had, I've retained a friend from that job.
Friend maintenance.
Yes.
You have
And what
to.
that means is most of my friends aren't ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Most of my friends are worldly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a way to maintain friends is to have some normal friends.
And I do. And if you study like I used to own a business networking company, so I used to, for use of a better word, recruit people to join my meetings that I ran in the morning, and I draw circles on the wall, and all circles overlap each other. And I'm now very good at going after scammers online because I go after their friends, and then I find what circles they hang out with, and I will always go 3 levels down and start chatting to somebody about something, and then introduce myself to the second level friend and start chatting to them, and
Wow.
then get an endorsement from the third person, and then I go for the normally what happens is the person I want to speak to starts chatting, and then I'm in them, and now I've got my scammer thinking I'm a friend when I'm a fake.
Oh, very clever.
And now what I'm doing, I've got this massive database, and they're all connected. And when a new scam comes along, I just go through the first 50 people's names I can find and see their associates. And then I'll go to the person I want to speak to and drop a name drop. And before I know it, I'm back in the circle of friends. And what we've done with my
Wow.
big mind map, we've found that all these scams are operating mainly at a one building.
Wow.
And now what we do to back it up, which we could do with the Jehovah's Witnesses, is we follow the money. And we watch where they pass the money from one crypto wallet address to another. And then the scam that died 700 days ago, all of a sudden puts money into the new scam. And that proves that they're not just, and they use, and this is the parallel, the people I go after are being used by the organizations, and we believe it's mafia-style cartel. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are using the Jehovah's Witnesses to do their dirty work for them.
They are.
It's
Yeah, I
exactly the
agree.
same. And you
It is
just look
exactly the
and you
same.
think you mongrels, and they're in their Bethel and their beautiful whatever places, and who knows how much piles of money they're sitting on. No one.
We
Because
really need people to report it. We really need people like account servants and, governing body helpers and ex-governing body members to report this, because they know what's going on.
you know what they don't? I don't know if you, because the same things with the scams, okay? They don't because a friend or a family member introduced them into it. And these, I reckon that's the same deal, that people don't speak about it because they don't want to upset. And even people who get kicked out of the Jehovah's Witnessing don't stand up for it because they don't want to upset their mum and their dad, or they don't want to
Oh, yes.
embarrass.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's a word I wanted to bring up today.
Oh, word of the day. Here we go.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that. So one of the things I would like people to understand is what is preventing justice, what is preventing accountability. And I believe that it's not just, for example, the 2-witness rule.
Oh, we haven't explained that yet. Is that
No.
what you're going to do? I think I need to summarize that at some part, but not now. I don't want to get you momentum. You tell me I want to talk about the 2-witness rule, why that protects them.
Okay, well, I actually think there's more things than that. I think what protects them, let's come back to the 2-witness rule, but I think what protects them is the fact that we're used as slaves, I allege, the fact that we're all kept poor, not me personally, not you personally, but Jehovah's Witnesses generally.
I am poor.
Poor.
I used to be rich, but I'm poor now. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm
the fact that we're not educated.
Yeah.
the fact that they're anti-democratic. So for example, we're not allowed to vote and we're not allowed to work in government. Well, we're not allowed to work as a politician or say be police people. Protects them from us understanding how to report them.
Yeah.
And the word of the day is endogamy.
Oh my God, I don't even know what that means.
Okay,
Endogamy.
well, I didn't know it either. So a year ago, I didn't know it either. But it's another word for essentially being inbred.
Wow.
We're inbred.
Yeah. And that's why it grows. You know,
And so
that's why
this is the
they want them to breed, though. I mean, like we've got Gloravale over here, and they just get the children at the age of 15, 16 to get married, and their job is just to have children.
Yeah, well, that was supposed to be my job too. How is it different? Yeah. So, Danny, remember I said I was going to give you some maths? This was my surprise.
Oh, yes. You didn't tell me what the surprise was, but you did.
This is it. You ready?
You don't like maths, so I thought, okay, all right.
No, that's why I'm getting you to do it. Okay, so endogamy is when you are required to intermarry into a group. That's endogamy. So another example of endogamy is, let's say back in the old days, if you were Italian, you were expected to marry an Italian, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's also endogamy. Another type of endogamy you just described is Gloravale, where they are required to marry with inside the cult. But I say the Jehovah's Witnesses are also endogamous, and that is a massive factor keeping us silent. So the maths I'm going to ask you to do is this. Do you know how many Jehovah's Witnesses there are in New Zealand?
Well, I thought there's 12,000. I thought there was 12, but I don't even know now. I'm guessing 12.
Okay, so if there's 12,000, I haven't checked, but if there's 12,000, how many women would be eligible for you to marry? Say today, if you wanted to find a Jehovah's Witness woman today, how many of those 12,000 would be eligible for you to marry?
Very few.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I used to struggle to find. I used to struggle. I mean, I would love to have a weekly podcast and talk about every aspect of it, because when you're a young fella, I don't know if we're going to get off topic here, but the only thing you can think about when you're a 13-year-old boy is girls. And when you're not allowed to touch them until you get married, it does things go wrong in the brain. But I mean, it was that. I mean, so when I got to the age of 18, all I wanted to do was get married, and I don't know, the ladies might have thought they had to get married and then have kids, but that was all we thought about.
That's exactly what we thought about too. So, we knew we had to get married and have kids. But let's just go back to the numbers. So if you've got 12,000 people today, half of those would be women, right? And you can't marry women. So that's 6,000, right? And then half of them are already married.
Yes.
So that's 3,000.
Okay,
right?
Cool. Yep.
And then maybe a third of those are children. So that's 2,000. And maybe a third of them are beyond marriageable age.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's 1,000. Yep. So just ballpark, in the whole of New Zealand, North and South Island, you had about 1,000 women available to you.
Well, let's just break it into a congregation, because I remember the congregation would be lucky if there's probably 80 to 100 people, and there's probably only probably 3 or 4 possibles, and they either were in relationships or potentially not old enough yet, and that was the picking. So you'd sort of marry somebody you weren't compatible with either. So there's a lot of
you only had a very small pool to choose from.
Yeah,
and so what happens? Sorry.
Your common interest is Jehovah.
Yes. That's another complicating factor. So if we go back to the word endogamy, if you're required to marry a Jehovah's Witness, and in a country the size of New Zealand, 2 islands separated by water, you've got 500 women on one island and 500 women on the other. So on whatever island you're on, you've only got 500 women to choose from, versus the whole of society, all the women in society that you would normally have available to you. So what are the chances you're going to be related to an elder, related to a ministerial servant, related to a kiddie fiddler, related to someone who kiddie fiddled with your own children. Very, very, very high likelihood that you're all related. And what does that do? That stops you from speaking out, because you don't want to be like we are, the black sheep.
Yeah, labeled.
You don't want to be ostracized by your whole community. You don't want anyone to know that you're the one who told, because you can't escape those numbers. That's why endogamy. I think you're getting really tired now working on the numbers and those words, but maybe we should nearly call it a day, because I know it's getting late.
Well, I'm fine. I actually really enjoy talking about it, and I can break this into different bits if I had to. So, and also I'm probably gonna, but I think if I was thinking about my time, I didn't even know how to, because I was brought up with a one-parent family. I didn't even know how to handle my urges and my, I didn't even know how to. I didn't even understand women, and here I am at the age of 18. I was engaged 3 times. When I was a Jehovah's Witness. And I remember when I was engaged one time with a girl, we had a big engagement party, and we had 130 people get together for an engagement party. Everyone bought gifts for us. And then the very next day, my fiance and I broke up. And then we got back together again. And then, oh no, we were going to get married. That's right. I was going to get married. And then we had an engagement. Everyone gave all the presents. And then it was a long story, but basically the very next day after we decided not to get married, she went and gave all the presents back to all the people that gave. She drove around and gave all the presents back, and it's silly things now. But at the end of the day, I realized that she just wanted to have a marriage. And it was always on her mind. And you go through the motions because you're just ticking another box. I'm baptized. I've got myself a girlfriend. We're chaperone. We're not allowed to sleep together if we get married. Then you get married, you tick that box off. Now we're going to do children. Tick that. We're profiled, and they are the Jehovah's Witness organization. And I don't to say this lightly, are predators. They go after people. My mother, when she got into the church, she was in a bad state. Her life was struggling. And they come along and gave her a nice, happy community, a sense of belonging, and that's what got her into it. My mother,
dad too.
They knocked on her door. She took a pamphlet, and they come back the next week. She saw them coming up the drive, and she thought she'll duck down so they couldn't see her through the windows. But we are more cunning than that, the Jehovah's Witnesses. So then they looked through the window and they said hi, and then she went to the door, bent over like she told them that she hurt her back. And she couldn't stand up because she was trying to get rid of them. But eventually, they were professionally trained to manipulate my mum into joining the Jehovah's Witness. Now, you'd think that one act where my mum, I could give you a whole list of disasters.
Set you up for a life of coercion.
Horrible. And you think, and you just think, oh my goodness, and I'm just one person. And that's another big circle that starts off again. All mum's friends. I remember mum married 3 times, and the 3rd time was to a guy that was a painter and a decorator. My brother was a painter and a decorator. My stepfather was a painter and a decorator. The guy that was his best friend who took me on like his son was a painter and a decorator. My mum remarried for the 3rd time, and he was a painter and a decorator.
Yeah,
he wanted to be with my mum. Mum couldn't be with him because he wasn't in the religion. So he got baptized in the religion. They got married. 6 months later, they got divorced. And you think, oh my God, now mum, mum's 80 years. My mum just tried taking me to court to defend, to get a protection order, because she was afraid that she wasn't allowed to exercise her freedom of religion. And it got thrown out, basically, out of the court. But it was just, and you think, this is my mum at the time, she was 78 years of age. And you think, oh my goodness. And I'm trying to reason with a judge and to sort of say, this is just a crazy religion, and it's just, I could give you stories all day long, but I don't know if we need to. I think we summed up why we got together here is because
Well, we've got a lot in common, haven't we? We've never met before, and you
no,
know, all of our stories align. Like we're brother and sister. You know, like yeah, I could see all of the women in my congregation were headed the same direction. They were always, you know, it was always about getting married and having children. In our defence, we weren't allowed to handle microphones, become a ministerial servant or an elder or a travelling overseer or a circuit overseer and a governing body member. So what else could we do? We had to do something. So that's why people wanted to get married and have kids, because that was our role.
Yeah. So are you a broken person?
Sometimes, not every day, but sometimes I am, and that's why you know, my family was fractured, and so yeah, different parts of my life are separate. So sometimes, but
My
and when I think about this stuff, yeah, it's quite painful. But on a day-to-day, you know, I do smile, I do go out, I do enjoy, you know, company of friends, and you know, have a connection with my dad. That's a hard question.
My partner's got a normal family.
It's so nice. So did mine.
She's lost her mother. And I said to her when we're coming back from the movies today, I said, you've had one major thing in your life, in your family, and that's your mother passing away. And I said, but she's got I'm pretty sure she's got 4 brothers and sisters. They've all got married. They've all got kids. They've all got, you know, nice things, and they're lovely. And I go there at Christmas time, and I'm too scared to tell them, you know, my family. And they probably wonder why I don't have Christmas with my family and I don't get joyful. I hate Christmas and I hate birthdays, and I just can't get that out of my head. But when you hang around a normal family, you realize what a horrible thing it has happened. I mean, yes, I'm scarred by it, because that movie that you watched, that I watched, the Insight video, you know, that brought tears to my eyes. And it was just like, I'm normal, I'm fine. And then, boom, you feel like you hit something, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
like
I would say that's how I feel. I feel normal most of the times, but when I have to revisit this, which is often, that happens to me too. Yeah.
So we must be human, and maybe we're more sensitive and more in tune, or we're like a radio that you tune in, and we can get right on that dial, and maybe we're more intuitive when listening to people. Like I believe,
well, I care about injustice. So yeah, I really care about injustice. So I am sensitive to injustice.
And you've made a difference. I can see that, and I think, and no one will probably really get you. Do you think who does get you, other than your partner? I know you've lost them, but who gets you?
Yeah, I've got a lot of. Well, I'm quirky, right? I'm into stuff that other people aren't into. So I'm a nerd, and I like to go and see animals in their natural habitat. So there's a guy who's a friend of mine who's obsessed with lemurs. We get each other. There's a guy that I go looking for birds with, a birder, a twitcher. You know, I really like doing that. There's people who are other activists who are really serious, and it's very easy to stay on point with them and do a project. So they definitely get me. It depends which facet of life we're talking about. I can, you know, meet someone at a bus stop and we have a connection on something. There's so many things humans have in common, you know. I have quite a few friends that are former cult members from different cults. And we're working on different projects. So, but I think if not for this, what we're doing here today, if not for this purpose, the people who get me most are those that are also obsessed with weird animals. I like creepy crawlies, like spiders and snakes and scorpions.
Okay,
and
a fun fact about snakes. And then I think 27 of the most poisonous. There's 29 poisonous snakes in the world, and 27 of them live in Australia.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. But, you know, I talked about this with you, I think, yesterday. I guess one thing I would like ex-JWs to know, or current Jehovah's Witnesses to know, is you can see paradise on earth. And I know that because I've seen it myself. You know, we talked about having been to 35 countries. And 3 different countries I've been to, I've seen paradise that they have there. And one of those places is New Zealand. And the place that I think holds a piece of paradise is called Maltops. And I went for a 4-hour hike up the mountain in Maltops. And as I turned into the forest, I started crying because it was so beautiful. So one way you could get me is take a walk up Maltops and tell me if it doesn't make you cry from its beauty, because it's otherworldly. It's like you can imagine dinosaurs walking across the plain on the top of the mountain. You know, you have Edelweiss flowers on the top. You have this beautiful running water cascades that are completely green, and all you can hear is the sound of water. There is paradise here on earth. You just have to get out there and look for it.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's cool. Yeah. There's a lot of sadness in my life, and there's a lot of excitement, and you know, and you energize people. I can see that. You know, you inspire people to do things. I mean, you could motivate me into doing more. Time's my worst enemy, to be honest, these days. And it's just in money. You know, you need money to survive, so I have to earn some money so I can carry on doing what I'm passionate about. You know, and I think you've made a difference. You know, people go, "Why do you do this? Why don't you just mind your own business?" And I go, "This is my business. This is what I do. I'm that guy." You know, and I'm proud of who I am. You know, do I get it right all the time? No. I'm always, you know, I'm dyslexic. And I'm struggling with words all day long. It's like playing tennis with your soul. You know, you're trying to get a word right. I'm just trying to figure out how to spell Moltox at the moment. It came out on my screen as
I'll send it to you.
No,
I'll send it to you. Maybe we could put a picture on the screen.
Yeah, well, I spelled it with you'll love the spelling, M-O tops. And the mole's probably pronounced a different way.
It's pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty close. Let me see if I can find a beautiful picture for you.
Yeah. How do you spell it?
M-O.
Okay, got that far good.
L-E. Look, here's a picture of it, but it's not the best picture, I've got to say.
I've got
You got it?
Yeah, I've got heaps. You can put me to the picture you're looking at on the big screen.
Well, the bit that I'm talking about is the forest. So if you go see down the bottom.
I've taken that photo before. No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
See right down the bottom, there's a green one. One of the 5 down the bottom. The second one from the left.
That one there. Yeah.
That one and the one above it. But it was even more spectacular in real life.
I've got to show you something you don't know about me. You know, I do drop shipping for a living, okay? And I one of my websites is an outdoor I sell outdoor camping products and hiking gear. And the photo that comes
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but this is me. This is me going into my favorite hut, which is the Crow Hut. And
wow.
And look, I'm all dressed up in my hiking gear.
That's awesome.
We tramped in there at nighttime, and my headlight broke. So I used my cell phone to navigate in there. Instead of we left at 4 and we got there at 11, but normally it takes me 4 hours to walk into my favorite hut. But you know, these are the photos of me walking out of. It's in Arthur's Pass, and
wow,
I go
serious.
Yeah, well, it is, and you know, but that's me over Christchurch, and yeah, I just love the outdoors, and that's what I was trying to share my passion with other people, and I ran a hiking club for a while, but when people started turning up in jandals, it kind of like it sort of made me feel like I'm going to kill somebody accidentally one day, you know.
Yeah, now for Australians that are listening, jandals, they're thongs, right?
Well, thongs go up your backside here in New Zealand because that's like up your G-strings.
Are jandals sandals? No, I'm pretty sure that they're flip-flops, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other one you don't know about me is I used to run a website called New Zealand's Information Network. And if you went to my website and you clicked on about New Zealand or destinations, you could go North Island, South Island, and you can come in here and you can read I've got 1,000 blogs on my website, and it's all things New Zealand. And I used to travel around New Zealand, relocating camper vans and motorhomes. And I
Wow,
used
cool.
to build websites for people who, when the internet was first. So I had the first internet cafe here in Christchurch. And then
Wow.
people used to come in, and they used to be building websites on the fly. So I looked over somebody's shoulder one day and asked them to show me how to build websites. So then one day I sold everything I owned, and this is when I started over. I bought a laptop and a digital camera. And then I literally used to hitchhike around New Zealand, walk into motels and adventure places and tell them, that's me in the river, drinking out of the fresh water in New Zealand, you know.
See, that's paradise. Is that not paradise?
Oh, it is. And you're sort of missing out if you don't go out there and get some.
I think that is
And
a very good way to find friends quickly, is join an outdoors club of some sort, whether it's cycling, kayaking, hiking, climbing, rock, mountaineering. It's a very welcoming community, and they like quirky people. So there you go. That's two of us that's into that. I'd love to do some. So you've been cave. What do you call it? Cave.
Well, they aren't all my photos, but I have. I used to do bungee jumping websites. I used to do blackwater rafting websites. I used to do all the helicopter companies' websites. I used to have, all the. I haven't taken that photo, but I've been. I took that photo, but I've been in places where people would probably think you wouldn't be able to do. I've been invited to speak at the New Zealand Tourism Board when they were redoing their website, and they had a $500,000 budget to do their website. And I stood up and said, you're wasting $500,000 on a stupid website because you don't understand what people want from the internet. And then I sat down, and then they said, can you stand up again and tell us why? And I said, on my budget, I've done a lot for New Zealand tourism, and I had all these, I said, information. People want information. They come to New Zealand for a holiday. So I said, they want articles, and they don't want to sit here and log in and do an itinerary and pick what bus line they want. They want to find out about our beautiful country we've got. So I'm real passionate about that, and I made $500,000 in 1 year doing my passion. And then I overcapitalized and bought a house and had a divorce and blah, and it went to shit after that, really. But I've done it, and people go to me, like, what drives you? And I go, they think I do what I do for money. And I go, well, I need money now because I'm not that flash with the money, and I'll get it one day. And I believe that you have luck. And I think I have coincidences happen. And I love, on my website, I call myself a connector. And that's my strength. I know how to connect people. I know to say, hey, even though I fumble my way through it and I'm trying to remember their name, I'll have a go and say, do you know such and such? Like John Vining? The goat guy. Now I want to read. I've chatted to the goat guy and he's chatted back, but we don't know each other. Now you are my in, and I want to do a video with him, and and that's how it works in life. And I believe in. I don't know if you ever listened to Zig Ziglar before.
Not sure. Sounds familiar. I'm not sure, but I believe in taking opportunities. So one way that we got to meet, you and I, was Anka Richter, the organizer of Decult, introduced us. Yes. So she did that, and so I straight away contacted you, and she said she wants us to do a podcast for the Decult conference, and now we're friends. So you've got to take opportunities.
Yeah, and and we can talk like people probably don't realize we don't hardly know each other, but we do. We have such amazing history that I could have a really heart-to-heart conversation with you, and you would get me, and you wouldn't say I got an interior motive of some sort. I'm just going, no, we've just shared something amazing, and it's not all bad. It's actually it's actually quite
interesting.
Yeah, it's like the psychological, the cult, not the culture, the psychology behind it. And connecting with people and helping somebody is so rewarding. It's worth anything that you can get paid. So, well, I really thank you for spending the time. We've spent 2 hours and 8 minutes so far, would you believe?
It's a lot. Can I say one more thing before you wrap up?
No.
Could you please bring up a website? I'm going to send you the website.
Cool, like this. Thank you.
Can you please bring up a website? Because I would like people
that takes my dyslexia seriously, because you spell out the words like I wanted to. Because people just write them off, and you've done really well.
Well, you trained me.
I know. I probably told you off because people think I'm grumpy sometimes, and they go, "Oh, I am grumpy. I got."
It's all good. So I'm going to ask you to bring up a website, because I'd like people to know where they can look for submissions. So I'm going to send you a link so it's easier. Just bear with me one sec.
That's a really good point, and I think I'm gonna outduke you here in just a minute, because what I do with my other life, and that's busting scammers, and I think I actually have on my podcast how to report crypto crimes, and I've got a blog on my website, and we should do something like this for reporting Jehovah Witness stuff.
I think we should, Danny.
Yep, how to report cybercrime and cryptocurrency scams, a global guide. And in here, we've gone through and found all the links to all the government agents where you can basically report crime. And if you don't report stuff, nothing's going to change.
That's exactly right.
And I reckon
that's what I'd like people to know.
Yeah, and this is one thing I wanted to say to you. It would be awesome to get together and give people a process. But we've at the bottom here, all these articles here are PDFs on how to put stuff together in a way where the scam organizations of the world will listen to you. And I have people ringing me just about on a weekly basis telling me they lost 50,000. One lost $5 million. And I said, have you laid a complaint? No, I'm hoping to get the money back from the scammer. But where's your one? Is it, you sent it to me? Oh, yep. So, I mean.
Yes, I sent it to your Facebook message.
It is.
Well, I think that's an incredible social good that you're doing. And I applaud you for your activism in that way. And I really think that we could work together on this. These alleged crimes that I've got a list of. Now, on that website, if you go to, I think it's under articles. So it's the website's called the Secular Association of New South Wales. Yep. And if you go to articles, you can see submissions there that I've made and others regarding the Jehovah's Witnesses. So you're just pointing to one now that I made to the UK.
So just from a layman's point of view, if you did you write an email, or do you have to, when you do a submission, do you have to fill out a form and have every bit of A to Z covered? Or can you write a letter?
There's lots of ways. You can write an email, you can fill in a form, you can just do it verbally. So someone like you, because lots of ex-JWs have
no skills on reading and writing.
No, it's not that they don't have skills. It is that they didn't get the education, or they didn't get the training that they needed when they were younger. So lots of them are actually dyslexic. So don't fear. You don't have to write them. You can give them a submission verbally and they will write it for you.
Wow.
And you can also meet with, in some cases, a commissioner or somebody that's part of the inquiry. So in my case, because I'm better at English than maths, I actually write them. But I have done a verbal one before because I didn't have time to write one. So I know that they can be done. So this one here is about modern slavery. And if you go back, I'll just point out a couple of them, and then we can do the wrap up, Danny, because I know that people have probably had enough of listening to me. And so if you go back one step, I'll just point out a couple of the topics.
All right.
So that's one on modern slavery. Then if you go down, so there's one there on loneliness and social isolation. So the next one down is on loneliness and social isolation in the Australian Capital Territory. That's the one that you're clicking on now.
See,
so that's a submission.
Because that's,
sorry?
Loneliness is a killer.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I've got to send you a wee video of me talking about loneliness one day, because I've done videos on loneliness. But it's just like it's the silent killer.
It is a silent killer. And speaking of being a silent killer, I believe that Paul Grundy is working with a website and some other activists called JW Support and trying to help people from the silent killing that loneliness causes.
Well worded. I used to have a website called Lonely Hearts, and it was a dating site. I thought I talk about dating quite a lot, because when I went through my divorce and nearly died at the age of 40, the first thing your brain says is get back into a relationship again.
And the answer is really be happy by yourself, and then you'll always be happy. So if you go back a step again, back to I'll just point out a couple more. So that was loneliness and social isolation. If you go down a little bit.
I'll just put it in the chat room. Oh, there's Bob. Maybe you could have, there's a message from one of my Avengers. Maybe we could have her watch scammers' Zooms and then point out all the cult tactics. Oh my God, that would be funny. You would die watching what I do when I'm not being nice to people. I'm like the worst person you want in a Zoom meeting, but you would see the same strategies and you would go, oh my goodness, and this is why I do it. But which one am I looking at? Sorry, I did listen to you there.
Oh, well, a good one is the one down the bottom in the middle there. It's called the Australian Productivity Commission's Philanthropy Inquiry. Now, don't be fooled by the title. That's all about the Charity Commission. So this submission is all about trying to revoke the charity status of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And recently, both New Zealanders and Australians made complaints to the Charity Commission to try and get the charity status revoked. This submission details the financial fraud.
How brilliant is that? Because I reckon that's the best thing. Hit them where it hurts. But
that's for your Avengers to have a look at.
Yeah. Well, we've got a great team of people that dig into these stuff,
Yeah. It sounds really interesting.
We've got a New Zealand organisation that goes after financial crimes. And I was talking to the guy, and I've got a hotline in now. So through my networking skills, we've actually challenged them and accused them of not doing their job properly. And we've laid complaints to government, what do they call the people, politicians, about the organisation. And then we got their attention. And all of a sudden we get all these standard emails changing. They're not standard anymore. They're written to us. And then we've got an Avenger from America somewhere, or maybe Canada, somewhere around that area. She's also writing to them. And now all of a sudden I get a phone call. Oh, no, I get an email from somebody who knew. And so I wrote to them and said, can we talk sometime? So we finished up getting on the phone. And they basically said that we can't ask you for information because of the Privacy Act.
Yeah,
so I said, well, how about
frustrating.
we just give you full access to our database and you can help yourself. And then that's what we're doing. So now so what we've found out, we've got organizations that that we've got hotlines into. And when I rang up this organization in New Zealand, I told you yesterday, but they said, I just said hello, and they said, "Was that Danny de Hek?" And I said, "How do you know it's me?" And they go, "Oh, we recognize your voice and we watch your videos." And I had to laugh. But I mean, we are making a difference. I think you're making a difference here. And doing nothing.
A similar thing happened to me when I arrived in New Zealand for the High Court case. I met someone from the Royal Commission, and I said, "Oh, hi, I'm Lara Kaput," and she said, "Yes, I know." How do you know? Oh, we know. I'm like, what? So it's nice to meet someone else making a difference. I mean, what you're doing is such an important social, social justice work. And if it makes you feel better, I don't get any money for doing this either. I use my own money, but it's nice to be twinned. It's nice to have a twin in New Zealand, and it would be even better if we twinned up.
We need a project. And we need to go after it. I mean, like once I've got gaping big holes. Interesting enough, I must say, we've actually got a guy, which I won't mention any names of, but he's been interviewed by the BBC. He's got a documentary, it's already filmed, and I've actually seen a copy of it. He's a scientist, and he has actually everything. What I'm trying to say is he's come to us and asked us to research these people that are scamming the scientists out of their intellectual hoo-ha.
Oh, intellectual property.
He's offering us, to investigate.
Wow.
This is the first time, but even though I don't make money out of my YouTube channel, it creates opportunities.
Yes.
And by doing things, other people contact us because they see our skill set.
Yes.
And I think, I've been doing this for 3 years and I've made $8,000 for my YouTube channel to date. And every time I get into a meeting and I'm busting it, they go, "Oh, you're doing it for the money." And I go, I work 70 to 80 hours a week. It is now 12:30 at night in New Zealand, and I'm still doing this. And I've done a 24-hour stream in the past, where I'm on the internet for 24 hours in a row. I do this stuff, and everything leads to an opportunity, and you have a bit of luck. And I've been one of the luckiest guys. I've had some amazing coincidences happen in my life. And I think this is the joy I get from doing what I do. You never know where the road will lead. But if you're sitting here, standing there doing nothing, you will go nowhere. And it's just the more opportunities you create, so it always, and I love connecting with people, and I think it's quite fun. But I think if we come up with a project and we caught them out and busted them and made it a public thing, and show them for the scammers they are, for the use of a better word, that's going to be really cool. Anyway, I get carried away now.
Yes, I'm feeling energized. We need to relax, and
I know.
You need to prepare to sleep. And I look
Yeah.
forward to meeting you in your country
Yeah, it's not too far away. I'm going to take.
next month.
I was actually going to. There's a movie preview which I've actually been in the premiere of it before. I've watched it and met the guys, and they're going to be there from America, and they're going to do that on a Friday. And I've seen, because I've seen it and I was busy, I weren't going to do it, but I'm going to get fully involved with this now, because I think that's a good thing. I'll be honest, the nervous thing I had at the start, I didn't actually really want to be involved with this. The Decult conference, because I wanted to make sure that they had enough support for people that were going, because just like I said, when I watched that video that you're in, it hits me and I had tears, it still hits me. So I didn't want to be part of something that wasn't going to open a whole can of worms for everybody.
Yeah, I
And,
understand. I
so
understand.
it's a welfare thing, because you've said in one of your videos I watched that you had to do it for your own mental health. You had to look after yourself, and
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm strong, but then all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, if I can give you some relief, Danny, you should know that most of the attendees for the Decult conference are actually psychologists.
Oh,
So you'll be very well supported.
Yeah. Well, I like to think I've got my shit together and I can handle it, but I'm
We
going
all
to
like to
tell you
think that.
one other terrible story. I went to a friend of mine. I was asked to be his best man. He was passing out pamphlets, and his wife was in the car and his baby was in the back. A truck driver come down the road who had he blacked out, crossed over the road, and my mate, who was a very fit person, couldn't jump out of the way and got hit and killed right in front of his wife and child.
I'm sorry.
And then I hadn't talked to him for 10 years. So I went along to the memorial service. There was about 250 people there, and I was disfellowshipped, kicked out of the organization. And everyone was coming up to me, trying to talk to me. Some people knew I was disfellowshipped. They were rubbing their hand or bumping into me on purpose just to touch me, to say they could say hello, but not say hello. And then my best friend, who lived in Australia, had come over he kept whispering in my ear, come back to the church. And I just couldn't believe it. Then his father, who was like I worked for him for 7 years, he came up to me and he said, you shouldn't be here, Danny, because people think you're not disfellowshipped and they're coming up and talking to you. And I just leaned over and I just said, I forgot what I said. I won't repeat what I said, but I told him he's mental. He's lost the plot. I think I did say that. I think he said, you've lost the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the guy I looked up to the most in my life. And then I said to my partner at the time, I said, I think I've done my respects. I'm going to leave. And as I'm leaving, the mother of the guy that just died come up to me, and she said, in front of everyone, thank you so much for coming. It would have meant a lot to Grant. And she gave me a big hug. And it was like, stick it up, you guys. This lady here, the center of attention, has come up and hugged a disfellowship person for coming and paying his respect. And then I said to my partner, well, let's go. I walked out the door, and I don't think I've ever walked into a wall of sadness as much as that moment, because it just all hit me. I've just done the right thing. I saw everyone that was a part of my life. They're still doing the same stupid shit. And I've got people begging me to come back to the religion. I've got people who are talking to me like I haven't been away from the religion. And everyone, it's just a mishmash. And the guy's brother was gay, and he had gone back into the religion and got baptized into a gay, and suppressed the idea of being gay, and just got on with it. So he, 2 years later, he died swimming in a pool. He had a brain clot. The 7 years before that, I bumped into him walking down the street, and I said to him, how long have you been on heroin for? And he said, how do you know that? And I said, my sister was a heroin addict. And I said, I can see it in your eyes. And he goes, oh yeah, well, I'm on the methadone program now. So he died. Sharon, his mum, died, and his father was a staunch elder. And 2 months after his wife died, I'm not sure if the date's right, but it was like 2 months, he'd gone and got himself another wife and got remarried again. And now the whole family's gone, and the dad's still in the religion.
And they take no accountability. And many people I know are ideating about that, wanting to do that act, Danny. And a lot of people I know have also tried to. And that's why institutional coercion should be illegal, and that's why shunning should be made illegal. Those
Alicia,
two things will protect us and children.
Alicia, who's going to be at the conference, she rang me up as the reporter, and she said, "Can you give me a number of people that you feel have left this planet?" And I said, "No, and you'll never get the answer to that question." And she said, "Oh, why is that?" And I said, "Well, when you get kicked out of the organization and you do, take yourself off this planet with your own initiative, there's no stats, there's no statistics, because the organization has kicked you out."
Yeah, there actually was a Canadian activist who tried to quantify it.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember her name right now. She actually lives in Australia. But I would, again, I would think that the Paul Grundy website, JW Support, because they're doing a project on it, they may have those numbers, like they're approximates. But I think they're around. If we search for them, they would be able to be found. Because I know that for protests, for example, they were trying to make lists of people that were remembered.
Well, I can do some simple stats. My sister wasn't baptized Jehovah's Witness. She was an unbaptized publisher, but she didn't die because of I believe she died because she couldn't live up to the expectations that the religion put onto her.
Oh, yeah.
My stepfather was, now I look back, probably bipolar. And he was like, when he died, this is back when I was 1979, he had $100,000 worth of debt.
Wow.
Because he used to
That's
go
a
out
lot.
and buy stuff on HP all the time. And he used to always be buying things to find his happiness. And he always felt like he couldn't please my mum. And now I look back, I think, he probably had bipolar, but there's no mental health. And this is the other thing I'll bitch at the organization about, is they don't have any training in the mental health. Here I am sitting at the back of the Kingdom Hall for 4 months. Every single meeting, I had tears streaming down my face. I could have left the planet a long time ago, and all they could do, no one ever come up to me at the back of the Kingdom Hall and asked me if I was okay. So I could have jumped off the planet.
Yeah.
And then after 4 months, no one in New Zealand I've ever heard of anywhere has got reinstated back into after 4 months. And then so I'm that guy. So they must have, we better get back in. I was only a young fella. So it's just crazy. But hey, we could talk all night.
I was telling you yesterday that about my family, I made a submission. So one of those submissions is so there's one I did for the Royal Commission into Victoria's mental health system in Australia. And one of the submissions is about the social isolation and loneliness one that I showed you before. So I detailed all of the mental health issues my family have. So a couple of those were someone had OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Someone had PTSD, including myself, post-traumatic stress disorder. Excuse me. Someone was morbidly obese. Someone, excuse me, was depressed, clinically depressed most of their life. There was 11 family members, and I could think of a mental health issue that could be attributed to each family member, including myself, and usually more than one. So it's a big issue that I've made recommendations for the government for, but I'm just one person. I need lots and lots of people to approach the government and parliamentary inquiries, report to the police, speak to your politician, members of parliament, make submissions. Let's continue the discussion, Danny, but I can't wait to meet you in person, which we will do next month.
Yeah, awesome, man. Absolutely awesome. I'm going to end this. I'm going to end this digitally so we can say bye to our viewers. Susie Stealth, which is a lady who's just popped up, said, "That's great info. Thank you very much." Susie is one of the most amazing persons she's my top researcher. She will find, we found where a scammer lived the other day and got a photo of her house because the scammer said one word that gave away her location.
Good on you, Susie.
Yeah, and she's a real, she digs deep, and
thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, and she goes through all her crypto addresses that follows the money, and she's tracked. This lady has tracked $350 million on one scam in 12 months on the blockchain, and then connected a scam that was 2 years old with a new one by following all this stuff. And there's a team of us, it's not just us, but these people, they do it out of passion. They do it out of the right thing to do. They've got more ethics than any organization called than I have seen. So I just think it's I think everyone can make a difference regardless how small and big. So if you do want to like this video, it will help you with that. We've had a pretty strong number of attendance all the way through. We've got up to 23 people here and here at a time, which is quite good for my live. And we've been broadcasting on 8 different platforms, including my private Facebook page. I really want to get the message out. This is the thing I'm most passionate about. I've done over 1,600 videos on YouTube.
Wow.
The reason I started these YouTube channels was to get the message out about my life and overcoming these obstacles to, do what we do. So it's just there's people speak, back us up, and we
Thanks.
love all you people that contribute. So I'm going to end that. Have a good day. I'm Danny de Hek, and that was Lara, and I've got the last name. It's
Kaput, Lara Kaput. Thanks,
nearly
Danny.
got there.
Nice to see you, and I'll meet you in person soon.